This. Okay, guys, welcome. Before we begin part two, sorry, Twitch. Damn, it's supposed to be muted by default. But so I want to know if this is too loud. And actually, let me turn up the music for a second. Okay. There was a complaint yesterday about you couldn't hear the video, so I'm going to play the video right now, and I just want to know if you guys can hear the video properly. I do apologize to subject you to DX's videos, but actually, you know what? I'm not going to do that. Let's do this instead. Let me just. I'll subject you to one of mine, and let me know if you can hear this or not. Yeah, I got to just get a quick sound test in before I start the video, because I don't want people to. Some people were saying they couldn't hear what DX is saying, as if you wanted to hear this, but you know what I'm saying. All right, I'm gonna go to. All right, sure, let's go this one. Where's the video? Where's the final version of this? Is this it? I don't know. I'm going to play like a rough draft of something. Who the hell knows? Hopefully, this is not a bad video.
One of the main driving forces of the plot of Code Geass is the Geass contract itself that was formed between Lelouch and C2. C2 is pretty tight-lipped on the terms of the contract, despite Lelouch's best attempts to get information from her. But even fans were curious about the terms of the contract and what was C2's wish.
Can you guys hear that? Let me know if you can hear that or not. It's really important. I don't just mean like you hear sounds. Can you make out what I was saying? Now, granted, that was my earlier videos where my quality of mic was crap. If you can hear that correctly, and you know what I was saying, okay. All right, we'll try the exit video. And hopefully, there's no problems. Okay. My goal, by the way, for today's stream is to get to 30 minutes, but I'm not sure if how would I put this? I don't know if we'll get that far because there's so many problems with this video, but we're gonna get right to it because yeah, we got a lot of stuff to go over. Okay, everything is good to go. YouTube live stream. Okay, all right. Let's get into this video, part 2, people. And by the end, I'm going to put this all in one big compilation. So look forward to that.
Sends us further down the shitter, has Suzaku justifying his motives behind joining the Britannian army after they invaded Japan. He's
So make sure I didn't miss anything else. Okay.
framed for the murder of Clovis by the government and tortured. I say he's framed because testimony from Lloyd and Cecile on his whereabouts is thrown out for no real reason.
One second. One more thing. Okay. Hopefully the echo cancellation is not affecting how you can make out what's being said. Okay.
His status as an honorary Britannian, which means that you were formerly a number, makes him easily accountable for the murder that they can't solve, so they have to pin it on someone. Jeremiah Gottwald is in charge of this all and is the victim of another contrivance. Let's explain exactly how this is contrived. If the problem from the writer's perspective was Suzaku's imminent trial and conviction for the murder of Clovis, and the solution was Zero saving Suzaku so he wouldn't be executed for the murder of Clovis, how does one bridge the gap between the problem and the solution? The smartest choice here would have been to not have this problem in the first place. Suzaku clearly didn't do it based on his whereabouts at the time, and all the rancid shit-caked logic in this episode could have been avoided.
What I find interesting about these two statements he just made. So first he explained what happened, right? Why they're framing Suzaku, why he's being executed. Then he says then the problem didn't exist. So what is odd to me is he knows why they're doing it this way, but he still says they shouldn't do it this way, even though he didn't. When he discussed the reasoning, he didn't use any real hyperbolic language describing why it made no sense. Well, for the most part. Now, the whole point of like framing him and you know the testimony and all that stuff. I mean, Again, there's nothing really inaccurate about that. But I just find interesting that he's saying that, okay, here's what's going on in the story. And even though they have the solution to solve it, we shouldn't be here in the first place. If you know that they're framing Suzaku for the crime, then it doesn't matter if he didn't do it or not. You literally admitted that he is guilty, right? I mean, let's go back really quickly just to make sure I understood at this point, because I feel like there's a contradiction here.
Was Zero saving Suzaku so he wouldn't be executed for the murder of Clovis? How does one bridge the gap between the problem and the solution? The smartest choice here would have been to not have this problem in the first place. Suzaku clearly didn't do it based on his whereabouts at the time, and all the rancid shit cake.
Yes, but you said it was a frame-up. It doesn't matter if they could prove he was innocent or not. It was a frame-up. So that doesn't make any... Didn't you... One second.
Makes him easily accountable for the murder that they can't solve, so they have to pin it on someone. Jeremiah Gottwald is in charge of this all and is the victim of another contrivance. Let's explain exactly how this is contrived. If the problem from the
Yeah, I'm lost at what we're doing here, because in one end you explain how it's not a contrivance because the story established he'd be an easy target to get rid of, and they obviously framed him for it. Then you're saying it is contrived because he was innocent, but that's not relevant here. I don't know. I feel like there's contradictions within like 5 seconds of this. It's kind of crazy to me. But okay.
Was Zero
none of that made any
Suzaku
sense to me.
so he wouldn't be executed for the murder of Clovis? How does one bridge the gap between the problem and the solution? The smartest choice here would have been to not have this problem in the first place. Suzaku clearly didn't do it based on his whereabouts at the time, and all the rancid shit-caked logic in this episode could have been avoided. But the dumbest choice...
There's nothing bad about what happens here, but okay.
And the one the writer went with was to have Jeremiah televise his transport of Suzaku to military court.
Let's be real here. I misrepresented Jeremiah's plan. Jeremiah already knows the event will be televised and has no problem with it. His incompetence such that he actually proposes bringing civilians to transport Suzaku. These people are later turned to Cosmo Zero. What an idiot. With no civilians, Zero has no one to take hostage if his plan fails. No, the stream started now, actually. We're in the middle of the video. Okay. So the problem he has with the entire situation, how do I put this? The problem I have with his interpretation of this is that, okay, it worked out for Zero. He had the perfect opportunity to take hostages, right? But from Jeremiah's perspective, I don't think he should have concluded that was going to happen, given that the Britannian has serious military might, given how the JLF hasn't done anything at this point. The terrorist groups are not really a threat to anybody. Ogi even said that, by the way, in episode 2, and he's like, why would they be like setting traps? They have the full advantage in this war. The story has made it very clear, even though we're on episode 4 of it so far, that the Japanese people have stopped fighting, or they're not resisting as much as, say, a full army. They're not really a threat, okay? Basically, his main complaint here is the fact that because it helped out Zero and it worked for him, therefore it was a contrivance of some sort. It was like artificially designed for Zero specifically. And that's not entirely true, because it just happened in a situation that he could use his Geass for. It's not really a contrivance, because in no more situations that would not have happened. Like, no one else could have solved it except for Lelouch. It was basically a situation where in any normal circumstance, this would have gone without a hitch. Zero happened to have Geass, and I happened to have him, and that helped him get through this. And did the story do that because Zero has Geass? I mean, yes, to some extent, but by that same logic, any story that has a situation where a character applies a certain ability in a unique way to solve a problem, I guess is a contrivance, because that circumstance was designed for them to use the ability for. I don't really know why that's even a problem, if that's the argument being made here. But again, Jeremiah is not even stupid for suggesting this, given everything he knows about what's going on in Japan. So this whole thing is like his entire arguments here are kind of asinine.
It's at this point that we see another strange element within Code Geass. Whenever the writing tries to swallow its own cock, you'll have a character point out how stupid it's become. Here,
What? Okay. So apparently, if characters question what's going on in a story, that's a problem. Even though in real life, I mean, I'm sure you could testify from your own personal experience, but in real life, you're probably in a situation where when you're at work or school or whatever the case may be, you probably have questioned what someone was saying or an idea. Or hell, if you probably question your politicians who do certain things. I say politics, I'm not sure exactly what how to put this, where you guys are all from, but you always like what is wrong with people questioning authority and suggesting they think the plan is dumb? They're not in charge, so it's not their call to make. It doesn't. How many times have you watched a story where that happens? I'm not saying that because our stories do it, therefore it's fine. I'm just saying it's a reflection of real life, which is what he was saying earlier about contrivances. I don't know what the issue is with characters saying, you know what, I don't think that's a good idea. And it's like, okay, well, you're not in charge, my friend. I don't know what the problem with that is. This is ridiculous. This is I just don't think it's a fair critique because that's a more realistic approach. People would say they don't agree with someone's perspective. That happens all the time in real life, and the show is just reflecting that. What do you want them to do? Be like, yes, that is a good plan, my lord. You know, like some people do that too. You have, of course, two different perspectives on how people view others' orders. But they act like the very notion that people simply comment on something being dumb, therefore it's like the show's acknowledging its own flaws. No, it's showing people having a conversation. It's good dialogue. Because good dialogue, you have attacking and defending. Someone brings up something, then someone attacks someone's perspective, then they defend it. And that's how you have good dialogue. That's how you learn about the situation. That's just how that works. I don't know. I thought that was obvious. Anyways.
Jeremiah televising this event gives Zero a perfect chance to strike because he'll know their location. Valletta comments on this because she's right, and Jeremiah...
Wait. Hold up.
Here, Jeremiah televising this event gives Zero a perfect chance to strike because he'll know their location. Valletta comments on this because she's...
I don't think she mentioned about the groups of people or that don't know when it is situation, but she does mention there are people who might try to rescue him, okay?
Right, and Jeremiah, who was previously incapacitated by Callan and Lelouch in a nightmare ambush, says that there's no need to worry because he'll be transporting Suzaku with his Sutherland mech.
You mean nightmare frame, right? I'm not even gonna. That's a common thing people do all the time. Well, yeah. Why would he be concerned? That whole situation with Zero and Colin was unusual. You can't be like, well, because there was that random ambush in Shinjuku, therefore they would come back here. That's a big stretch of logic, in my opinion. But something else too, I should mention. He keeps talking about how like Jeremiah could be attacked by Zero or something. He doesn't know Zero exists. This is Zero's debut in the story. So you're saying Jeremiah should have knowledge of something he didn't know was even a thing. He doesn't know what caused the ambush in Shinjuku. So to act like, okay, he should have realized that the people who attacked him there will come to this meeting or this transporting of Suzaku for whatever reason. I don't exactly know how you can... What? Okay. Now, yes, Valletta is right that her assumption is true that people might come and help out. But again, they have the whole area on lockdown right now. They have the full military force. When Zero goes in there, you'll notice that there's a lot of nightmare frames, okay? And keep in mind, the resistance groups don't have nightmare frames in general. Maybe a couple glass skulls, but they don't have much. There's a great part in, I believe it was stage... was it 17 or 18? One of those where they're in a submarine And then Naomi's like, when we first started, we could barely get a motorcycle. Now we have like a submarine or something. The whole point behind that statement is to show how far they've come, which means that all the different terrorist groups at the time, didn't have a lot of resources. So how was a small group of people going to break in there to fight against an army of Sutherlands? It would be a suicide run. To say Suzaku, yeah, some people do like him, but understand a lot of people don't like him either. There's a what's the word? People consider him a traitor, right? There's a whole discussion between Suzaku and Yuffie and Tamaki. Well, Yuffie's not really involved in it, but she's watching, where Tamaki calls him a traitor. So there's people who don't like him either. You understand there's a two sides of how people view Suzaku. One see him as a hero, others view him as a traitor. So not everyone will go in there and will try to stop it. And the ones that could won't. They don't have the like. How would they do that exactly? It's kind of garbage when you think about it. That's why I'm like, but do you think any other group could have came in here to stop it? Absolutely not. Televising it is fine. There's nothing wrong with that. They're trying to broadcast it. They're making an example out of Suzaku. It's very arrogant of Jeremiah. It's perfectly thematic with the Britannian Empire. There's nothing wrong with televising it. The reason why he's so angry about it is because it happened to go against his narrative, where he's like, well, you see, it was an open area. Zero has a Geass power that works on people in an open area. And so it kind of worked for him, you know? It was done so Zero could go in there. And I'll get into why that's bullshit. But this is a classic example where it's like, I just hate this show and I'm going to point out everything wrong with it, even though I don't even see the problem here. From what we've been established in the story already, and what we learn later on, which again, this is a whole retrospective of the anime. It's not just an episode analysis. You can't really act like this. So I don't know. It's really frustrating, and it only gets worse, unfortunately.
Lo and behold, they're attacked by Zero and forced into a hostage situation because Zero is carrying a bomb that everyone else believes to be poison gas. Suzaku knows it isn't and tries to tell them, but he has a shock collar on, so he can't speak. By this time, Lelouch has already Geassed Jeremiah into attacking his own men and letting him escape. This is why this is contrived. Because of all the fucking options the writing had available to it, from escorting Suzaku privately to military court to setting up a trap to ambush Zero, they decided to make a spectacle of it and give Lelouch an incredibly unnatural path to saving Suzaku. The worst part is, the anime is almost aware of how stupid this is because Valletta comments on it, but it uses Jeremiah's arrogance as justification for these events to happen. There's being arrogant and there's being stupid, and Jeremiah's reaction to having the situation flipped when Zero gets there just makes him an incompetent buffoon. See what I'm saying about Lelouch's plans? They all hinge on the other side being crippled by such stupidity or context-specific coincidences so much thus far that it's hard to call him smart.
Man, a lot of stupid nonsense in that. Let's get the first thing out of the way. Let's discuss the alternatives he mentioned, because there's a bunch of other ones that could have happened. Let's go over those, right? He said, set an ambush for Zero. He doesn't know who Zero is, so you can't go after someone you don't know exists, right? That's kind of dumb. All right. So there's that. That's like the first complaint. Second, transport him in secret. Okay, and Lelouch would have found out that way too. He could have easily figured a way to save Zaku as well. It's just it's a coincidence, not a contrivance. It's a coincidence that they happen to choose a route that happens to favor Lelouch's plan overall, or make it easier for him in a sense to do it. But by the way, I think another thing to keep in mind is that I wouldn't say this was super easy to accomplish. It just happened to be that way because of Geass. But even then, Jeremiah could have killed all of them as soon as they appeared in the Clovis transport. I wouldn't call this an unnatural path. It was actually quite difficult. Lelouch even was sweating when he put his helmet on. That's a very important detail they showed, because even though he thinks he can do this, there's still a bit of nervousness in him because they could all get killed. Colin and Ogi weren't exactly confident either with the situation. It was all it was like a last-ditch effort to try to save Suzaku, but I wouldn't call it like, oh, it was unnaturally easy. There was nothing easy about that. Lelouch had to. One thing this guy is completely under stating or downplaying is the fact that Lelouch's acting sold the entire thing. If Lelouch came up there and he wasn't confident in his ability to win and he was nervous when he was talking to Jeremiah, the whole thing would have fallen apart. You're not even taking into account the fact that Lelouch's acting there was actually really solid because he was very nervous the entire time, which is kind of important. You know, it's a critical detail. It's not just the fact that Geass helped him, it's the fact he was able to put on a show, which got also D-Tart obviously excited, and that kind of like spun the whole narrative. So there's a bunch of things going on here, and I think the nuance of not acknowledging that and just saying like, okay, well, he just chose this one route to, what's the word? Get Suzaku and parade him in front of people. God, what a moron. If someone wants to take hostages, and like, who the hell would take hostages? There's no legitimate threats right now against Britannia. If there were legit threats, do you think Clovis would have been in charge? Come on now. They don't even know who killed Clovis. And yeah, maybe that was a potential threat that they should have been aware of, but they don't even know what the hell happened. And they were blaming on Suzaku. So it's one of those things where you're suggesting they should fight a problem they didn't really know existed at the time. I really don't know why this is a contrivance. I think this is a situation where you just don't like the fact that Lelouch didn't win. You think he's dumb because I'm not really sure. As I said earlier, besides Zero, which again Jeremiah didn't know about, the JLF wouldn't have shown up. The other terrorists would not have showed up. Heck, the ones who helped out Lelouch wouldn't have shown up either. In fact, most of them didn't want to join the whole thing. It was just Ogi and Colin. So no one wanted to get involved with this. That is the reasonable assumption. Britannia has conquered this country. They've held it together for a long time. They have a superior military force, and people don't like Suzaku to begin with. There are some that do, and there's some that don't. I wish Jeremiah said that against Valletta's response, but whatever. Another thing to discuss is that because Valletta said it was stupid, therefore Jeremiah is stupid. First of all, Valletta didn't say the plan was stupid. She merely pointed out a thing to consider. I don't recall her saying this is stupid. You know, it's funny. You said at the beginning of this video that there's no fact except what the characters outright state. Well, Valletta didn't say it was stupid. She just said that, there's some people who actually like Suzaku and they might actually go in there and save him. I don't recall her saying stupid. Her tone was actually pretty calm. She was just saying like, listen, I like this idea, but consider this point. You know how like, one second. Excuse me. You know how like when you're in a meeting with, say, your lead or whatever company you're in, or even just a friend group, you'll say, let's do this. And they're like, well, have you considered that? Just because people are disagreeing with you or pointing out a possible issue, that's not a indictment of the plan itself is dumb. You think the plan is dumb. She never said that. If you're going to say something about, if you're going to say a factual statement about what characters say, then get it right, damn it. Now, Kiel thinks Jeremiah is kind of dumb, but not Valletta. So let's be clear on that. Kiel does think some of Jeremiah's actions are stupid, especially the whole orange stuff, and that's why he tries to kill him later on. Valletta doesn't feel that way. In fact, Valletta is very loyal to Jeremiah, which is something that comes up later on in the episode. So that is already like, there's even more stuff to talk about here, but I'm just saying like that's like, that's so dumb. All right, now this is probably the another thing to consider that. Again, because he's like, well, how the hell is Lelouch so smart if this plan was so contrived or whatever, the whole thing was contrived? Let me ask you a question, okay? And I'm obviously you're not going to answer it because you're never going to watch this video. And if you do, I don't think you'd comment anyways. But how long did Lelouch have to come up with a plan between learning Suzaku was captured? How long do you have? What, 24 hours maybe? Less? I don't know. Let's say 24 hours. He came up with a plan to save Suzaku in 24 hours that involved Clovis's transport, getting fake gas, or getting the device that has the fake bomb, getting someone to actually drive it, and then coming up with a way to convince Jeremiah that, in fact, to not kill him. Do you not realize how smart and genius that is? He came up with that plan in like less than a day. And this is something we saw early on in Stage 2, where he came up with a whole plan to draw out Clovis's troops to capture and kill him. Well, I mean, to use Geass on him and then kill him. He came up with that plan too. He looked at the whole board. He's like, okay, I got a plan. Here's what is in action. The same thing happened here. He realized that there's a situation. He was given all the options because he learned what was going on. Theoretically, if it was a different situation, he also could have managed that as well. It's not either way. Because the one thing you got to understand about Lelouch, let's say it was a different situation, his Geass will still do the job, right? He could just use Geass on people in a different way to find out what's going on with Suzaku and then rescue him in a different manner. It's really no different. The reason why this is just my opinion, the reason the writers chose this particular means to get to this point was to simply have a more fun, thematic way to do it. I was watching an interview from the people who made the John Wick films, and they said something which I think is interesting. I don't know if it's always true or should always be implemented, but the idea that, like, if you could pick the most logical way, I guess, or the fun way, and both are not too far from each other, and they both kind of work, then you can do the fun way. Let's make it a little more unrealistic but fun, in the sense that, yes, you can maybe argue this wasn't the best way to do it, although thematically it makes sense. But they were trying to get Lelouch out there in the spotlight. That was kind of the point with that. And that's why even, I think, wasn't one of the cameras, no, sorry, that was stage 8 was when the camera was stolen. But you can do it. You can change it a little bit if you want to make the scene kind of interesting. That's really what the point of that was. Like, that's why they chose to do it in that way, rather. And that's just my theory, by the way. I don't actually know the writers. So to only see this in a negative light, I think is I mean, as I've discussed now, you can look at it from an actuality, like the facts of the situation, and that what Jeremiah did, while very arrogant, I wouldn't call it stupid. It made logical sense considering what Britannia is and who he is as a person. We even see him earlier on, when he's fighting against Kyle, how arrogant of a prick he is. It goes along with what we've established about him. The only time I get angry when characters act, let's say, really dumb, is when they don't normally do that, and then for some reason they flip the script on them for whatever reason. But if the character is consistently acting how they've always acted, I don't know why that's a problem. Incompetent? I wouldn't even say he was incompetent. Could anyone have predicted that Zero existed and would have used Geass to get what he wanted? Like, nobody would have predicted that. Think about this for a moment. Let's say Lelouch did not have Geass power, right? And the gas was being used as the threat, which, of course, it wasn't actually able. Let's say it was. I don't think the plan works at all, So it's... his points are more contrived than the actual contrivance he complains about, because he's saying, well, someone else could have came in there and done it. Probably not. And the whole thing was for Lelouch. I mean, he could have done 1,000 different ways if the plan was different. I know I'm like going in circles here, but it's crazy to me because I thought thematically this made sense. I thought the background behind everything going on here made sense. But if you hate the story, you would find every way possible to disregard it. And like I said before, Lelouch came up with this plan in literally a day? But he must be a moron. I bet any of us, myself included, would have looked at the situation from his perspective and say, you know what, I like Suzaku, but I'm not sure. I guess I could rescue you from jail. Maybe I'll meet you at the trial and come in there or something. I don't know. I got a Geass power, but it doesn't block bullets. It tells me what to do. I guess I could Geass everyone in the building you're going to, but that'd be kind of risky. You got to look at it from all perspectives. And the one thing he never gives Lelouch credit for is how fast he comes out with these plans and what resources he has to execute said plans. He has no military force. It's just him, Colin, and Ogi. And that was hard enough to come by. You don't think about these the other things when considering his plans. You're like, well, it was easy for him. It didn't sound easy. He had to convince people to join him and then come up with this last-minute plan. Then even getting that together was a problem. I don't know. It's just funny to me because, like, if you don't actually know the context behind the sequence, you're probably thinking outside watching, it's like, yeah, that makes sense. But if you actually watch the show, you'd probably think, no, that literally was explained, people.
But this episode isn't done yet. There's more abhorrent writing to witness. After Suzaku is saved by Zero, Zero offers him a spot in their group, but Suzaku declines, citing Clovis's death and the risk to civilians that Zero's group is responsible for. Suzaku says that he's going to change Britannia from the inside. And this moment, right here, is where all hope was lost for Code Geass, Lelouch of the Rebellion. Because no amount of good writing could save a series with a character this flawed. This is the point of no return.
Well, considering how the Zero Requiem is a thing, I would say no, that's not true. And considering that the writing actually did say that, okay, I'll bother repeat myself. Let's not do that. Considering there's more going on in Suzaku and Luch's conflict, that's complete bullshit. That's just like, I don't even know how, like, if I need to even illustrate why that's completely wrong. The idea that because Suzaku has flaws, therefore the show is bad. I don't know, man. That's really weird. That's a bad take. But Suzaku has like issues and he's clearly problems. Therefore, like the whole show was doomed after this, or the path of no return. That's just not true. Like it's considering a lot also happened besides that. I don't know. That's really odd. Suzaku grows throughout the series. A lot of things happen because of his attitude here. I don't know, man. That's just not true.
Suzaku begins to leave, and Zero asks him where he's going. Suzaku says that he's going back to face his charges in military court. Zero, being a mentally sound human being, says that they've already rigged the fucking court. Suzaku says that these are the rules. Zero calls him an idiot and says he'll die. Suzaku says he doesn't mind. Suzaku Kururugi is, as you've just learned, and will continue to see through the remainder of this video, the most stupid character to ever exist in an anime. He says that he wants to change Britannia from within, which is a noble gesture, but one that he'd already have failed at if the plot didn't need him alive. He was shot by his superiors for simply questioning them. Now he's being framed for a murder he didn't commit. How the fuck can you change anything if you're fucking dead, you dumb cunt? How can he even fathom working for such people? In addition...
Now, what you just saw here is a series of statements that in a vacuum might make sense, but were so horribly presented, it's hard to, one, take them seriously, and two, there's a lot of problems with them. And this is about what I was saying earlier in the first stream, which was, how is it supposed to start a discussion with anybody when you are so confidently speaking absolutes that this is that your interpretation of Suzaku is correct, or more importantly, like the whole attitude here is so one directional. What exactly is the conversation supposed to have besides the fact that you're an idiot? Ironically enough, since you're calling other people stupid. That's the first thing I want to mention. The whole way he presents this and the entire video, like this might be one of the most frustrating parts. And of course, people laugh when he called Suzaku a C word. Of course they did. All right. So let's talk about one key thing he missed out. And it's kind of important, a little detail here. When he tells Lelouch he's going to face, he doesn't know he's Lelouch, Zero, he's going to go face his trial and die. He said something which he, of course, didn't show. And one thing DX does in this video, he completely, he doesn't show or talk about certain key pieces of information that kind of connect certain points. And because he doesn't do that, he's kind of misleading the audience. And we'll get into bigger examples later. So he says that Suzaku simply left, right? Suzaku also told Lelouch that if he doesn't leave to face his charges, they might kill actually other 11s or honorary Britannians. He literally mentioned that, right? He said he was going to do it to protect those people. So the thing about Suzaku, and this is another thing I'm really frustrated about when it comes to not understanding characters, because holy crap, dude, this is an entire misrepresentation of character. You have gone through the entire story, as you said several times, and are prepared to discuss it. This statement alone is proof of the opposite, because Suzaku is doing several things in his story. It's not just he wants to make change from within. That is definitely one thing. There's a couple other things to note. He also believes that you, obviously, if you had to make change to the opposite approach, basically what Zero is doing, then he wouldn't do that. He'd rather die. That's his point. We also know that Suzaku is suicidal. And you know this too, since he's already seen the whole show. Suzaku is suicidal. It's been discussed why he's suicidal, and he is seeking redemption through his act of killing his father. Suzaku is simply trying to die in a meaningful way, and the way he's chosen to do so is to make change from within. At least that's one of the ways. However, if he could die to save some 11s, that's also fine by him. Because remember, Suzaku joined the military to save lives, which he's going to discuss later why I think it's hypocritical. It's not, but whatever. He's going to say it is hypocritical that he joined the military to save lives. You know, the military kills people. Well, not everyone in the military kills people, right? That's a very gross simplification for someone who claims to know what the hell they're talking about, which of course he's not. But the point is, you're only looking at one specific aspect of Suzaku's character here and not looking at things and the greater scheme, which you should be considering this is a season discussion. I know I've said like 1,000 times at this point, but like I have to keep emphasizing that because from an episode perspective, maybe you have a point, but you're looking at the entire series as a whole. So 3 things, like I said, save lives, may change from within, and redeem himself through an honorable death. That's what Suzaku is trying to do. So those are all 3 things you have to consider about what Suzaku's motivations are. And 2 of those are being honored right here. He will save those people's lives and he'll die doing so. I don't know what the problem here is. Now, you might say, is Suzaku dumb for wanting to die? Sure, but he is technically irrational because he's suicidal at this point, and people want to live, generally speaking. So if you're a person suicidal, they're irrational. You're trying to apply a logical standard to someone who is not really thinking straight because he wants to die. People who are suicidal, they tend to be something's not entirely right up there, or they're going through some trauma they haven't dealt with. There's a bunch of other stuff too. I want to get into suicide prevention. That probably won't even do well for monetization. But anyway, what I'm trying to say is that Suzaku clearly isn't acting rationally at this point because of his given past. So yes, that's why it works for me. Your complaint with him being stupid, it's like, if you don't, I'll say as much. If you don't consider anything else about his character, yeah, sure, you won. You got that point. I'm glad you're here to tell us these things. But for everyone else who actually understands the character, this made sense to me. Now, in terms of like his most obvious thing where he goes, well, if he dies, he can't make change from within. Yes, that's the point. He will die trying. That was what he was trying to say. And he would rather die than do what Lelouch did to make the change. That's kind of the point. I don't know why this is so complicated in a sense. There are 3 things. They're all stated out the story. When you connect everything back to the beginning, it all makes sense. That's why I'm angry when he said that if you look through the whole show from the beginning to here, you realize how bad it is. I'm like, no, actually, it's the opposite. If you look at the end of the show and you start watching these first episodes, you're like, oh, that's why they did that. You know, they explain why Suzaku would act this way. It's almost like, and I said this earlier on in the last stream, these are all reactionary takes. In other words, he watched the show, he took notes. We can go over that too in a stream if you want. And he probably was like, let me just take these notes, expand them on, and make the video instead of actually looking further into stuff. Because there are people who've actually discussed Suzaku's character and explained the whole nuance behind it. But then you get people like DX who simply don't care. And then you get people who agree with him who are like, yeah, Suzaku's dumb. I'm like, if you're going to suggest that Suzaku is stupid, you got to come with a better explanation. I made a video about Suzaku being dumb because in that video I was suggesting that he literally saw something and didn't really act on it. I thought that was kind of stupid because it was obvious in his face. It wasn't like it went against his motivation or belief. He just simply saw something and chose not to act on it. That was why I thought that was stupid. But in this context, we know why Suzaku thinks this way, and now we do at least. And so that's why it's the case. To be very simplistic by saying, well, I mean, if he can't make change if he's dead. Right. If he joins Lelouch to make change through violence, then that also goes against what he wants to do. It's not that's his worldview at this point. It will change later on when the show progresses. But it's just indicative of everything else in this video where it's like, come on, man. I hate to use the Joe vibe, but come on, man. But it's like, you're making it seem like a whole one-sided affair. It is very frustrating to go through this and have to make sense of the hatred here, the no context, no nuanced hatred.
Zero explained that the civilians weren't in any real danger because it was a bluff. The only person to have been killed as a part of their operation so far was Clovis. Bear in mind, Suzaku works for the army and they're at war with terrorists. People are going to die because that's what war is. He doesn't seem to understand this, and that's something that will continue to plague this character and subsequently this entire show, because if it isn't obvious by now, there is no
All right, well, that whole part is so dumb. But let's get through this first thing. Does Zaku know people die in the army, or in the military? Does he know that in war people die? He has no idea, right? You know, that's why he killed his father to stop the violence. He had no idea. What an asinine statement. Now, why does Zaku talk about joining the military to save lives? Is that a hypocritical thing? No, it's not. It's absolutely not hypocritical. Because a lot of soldiers do save lives. Zaku is philosophy. Well, I'm not saying completely accurate, right? But if you're going to talk about him, at least try to get it right. He believes that if he stops people from fighting, that will save lives. Will some people die in that process? Yes, he knows that. Excuse me. But the point is to mitigate how many people die. He's trying to stop people from fighting. Being the military gives him that opportunity. That's the whole point behind why he joined in the first place. Also, something I just want to mention too, and I know we're kind of stuck on this point, but I mean, there's so much wrong here that I have to keep going on this. But Singleton mentioned he mentioned, why would he work for Britannian? They're awful people. They try to kill him and that stuff. Yes, Suzaku was completely aware of that. He knows that he's going to face a lot of opposition early on. He told Toto that the whole point was to make them trust him. And yeah, he could have died at any other point. Obviously, that's the risk you take when you work for your enemy. And this was he knew going in the risks of doing this. I don't know what the conflict is. Yeah, you're going to join people who actively hate you. Yes. That's how most of these things start. If you look at any, I'm going to probably mention it again, you look at any social change in our country, the United States, or right anywhere else in the world, you had people working with those who they actively hated them, but they still figured it out and made it work. That's very common. I don't know what the problem is. If you're not willing to get in there with those people, nothing's ever going to change. To actively pretend like that's not a thing is extremely frustrating and indicative of how this video legitimately does. The guy doesn't understand the show, doesn't understand Suzaku, and just is making stuff up because, hey, Suzaku is dumb. He's in the military. He thinks you don't kill people in the military when he said he's trying to save lives. Suzaku actively avoids killing anybody if he can. He's trying to stop violence. He always mentions that all the time. The military gives him the ability to do that. So stated early on in the story. I don't know what the problem here is. And then, of course, you got to consider the fact that obviously in the military, you don't just have people killing each other. There's a good discussion from Knights of the Republic. It's a Star Wars game. It's like the best Star Wars game in my opinion. But maybe obviously there's other good ones too, like Battlefront. Not the new one, but the old one for the Xbox and PlayStation as well. So in that discussion, you have a back and forth between Carvo Nassi and Canris Ordo, and they discuss the whole aspect of warriors versus soldiers. And so Canris discusses warriors as people who conquer, destroy, pillage, kill, and then Carv discusses soldiers, people who fight against warriors to protect people. That's what Zaku is trying to do. Now, one other thing to mention also is the fact that Zaku, as he said in his video, which I think he should have reread this line before stating it, like to himself, Zaku, they're fighting terrorists. Yes, that's what Zaku is trying to do. He's trying to stop the fighting so he can make change from within. That's kind of the point, because terrorists are killing people. I don't know. I'm a little confused exactly. I could definitely agree if you want to say some of this may not be fully, might be misplaced. But to suggest that this is just pure stupidity is wrong. It's not. It's just not. You're not taking into account anything about Zaku's character. and how he thinks and why he's here. If you took those in consideration, we wouldn't be here right now. This is the most not nuanced look I've ever seen of someone discussing a character. I could literally go to Ghost of the Shell and say that I think her name is that the Major is a moron because she decided to dive into water, and even though she's a robot, that would kill her. Is she a suicidal idiot? Yeah, I guess if you're not looking at it from a nuanced point of view, but there was more going on in that scene besides her diving into the water. Even though Bato told her, he was like, hey, if you go in the water, it might kill you. But she didn't do what he said. So is she a moron? Is everyone, the story ridiculous? He commented her plan was dumb. So obviously she went against that. So the show was just trying to, as you said, shove its own whatever down its throat. You see how dumb this logic is? If you just apply it to anything else, it makes every story seem like pure garbage. That's the biggest problem I have with this video, is that that was the biggest, but it's one I problem with the video. If you take the logic he presents to cripple Code Geass, you could take the same logic and destroy every show that's ever been existed. Because all these shows have similar aspects to them. That's why it's so frustrating to have them discussed as some kind of Code Geass, some kind of anomaly, as opposed to every show that does something similar. Oh my goodness. That was a lot of mouthful, but yeah, there's more things here, but let's keep going. Oops.
Click here. Suzaku being a goddamn idiot and not realizing how stupid he is the...
Sorry. He didn't make me laugh. It's just the statement itself, like, he's so stupid, he can't see how stupid he is. Like, is that something you said when you were like a child? I don't know. I don't mean to like attack the person personally. Attack the ex as a person. I'm not trying to. That's the point of the ideas. But like, that statement is so juvenile. He's so stupid, he can't see how stupid he is. Okay, buddy.
Only reason these two characters are fighting. All right, now I think we can establish a pattern of events here.
Wait, hold
Suzaku
on.
And Zero.
There's something else he mentioned I must have missed. Let's go back here really quickly.
Subsequent, not realizing how stupid he is the only reason these two characters are fighting.
That is not true. The implication here is, let me take some quick water. My voice is like, it's not cooperating today. Probably because I was screaming yesterday. Okay. The implication here is that Zero is 100% correct and Zaku is 100% wrong, which is not true. See, now we're going to a complete different discussion, because now we're done with the whole Zaku, make change from Win if he died or something, because that's not because he knows he lives and he obviously becomes an opposing force to Zero. So we're done with that part. Now we're talking about, is Zaku not joining Lelouch in general a problem? Because he's so dumb he doesn't realize how stupid he is. Oh, man. Wow. Yeah, I already had that statement. The entire discussion about how to change something has been a problem that people have been trying to solve for years. Literally years. I'll give you one example, but there are tons in history. There was a but I always have to burp. It's so frustrating. There's a discussion between there was a debate between the Bolsheviks and the Mensheviks. The Bolsheviks want to make radical change to the system, and the Mensheviks want to work within the system to, I guess they work with the bourgeoisie. So one wanted to do a radical change, what Zero wants to essentially. And the Mensheviks were more like, let's work with what we have and try to do things more diplomatically. Are the Mensheviks morons because it never works? The answer is no. There are just two different perspectives on how to solve the problem. This is something that's been going on, during this has been a problem that's been discussed in history or going on in history for the longest time. How do you make change from win? Do you do it through a radical revolution, or do you do it by working with the system? We've had examples of both where it worked. Many of the civil rights movements was within. Some of it wasn't, some was. Okay, so the point I'm trying to make here is to act like this is a one-sided discussion is completely inaccurate, considering how history has shown us it to be the opposite case. So there is a conflict here. Okay, just because you don't understand what's going on in history or why Zaku and Lelouch are written the way they are, doesn't mean that there is no conflict. There clearly is one. One person thinks I'm going to do it from within, and one person thinks the only way to solve it is to destroy everything. Those are two different things. You're acting like one perspective is just not correct or can't work, and history would dictate otherwise. But when you don't actually want to put effort into the video, or seemingly you don't want to put effort, you come up with these really, really bad takes. I don't even know. Unless I don't know, I should stop saying at this point because here we are. But yeah, this take is just bad. You're trying to conflate Suzaku as suicidal with the fact that his philosophy wouldn't work in terms of making change from within. It could. There are legitimate arguments you can make that it could have worked. Some of them, of course, involved euphemia, which is fine because that was his plan from the get-go, which we'll get to later. But the whole notion of just, yeah, Zero's right here and Zaku's wrong. It's not necessarily true. It's obviously not true. All right, let's move on.
Right now, I think we can establish a pattern of events here. Suzaku and Zero need to conflict. So using this series' logic, what would be the best way to box these characters into a conflict? If you guessed, put Suzaku in the school because otherwise there would be no reason for Suzaku and Zero, or Lelouch, to meet outside of the battlefield, then you're right. What you'll also see a lot of in Code Geass are patterns like these.
Okay, let's go over one of the statements he made, which was they put Suzaku in the school to create conflict. All the conflict between Zero and Suzaku happens on the battlefield. The only time there is conflict, if you will, and I wouldn't even call it that, was the cat chase, which I wouldn't really call that a conflict. There are occasional arguments about the Black Knight's actions, but generally speaking, most of the conflict is not involving Ashford. Now, sure, does it give Suzaku and Lelouch a chance to meet up and talk? Yes. However, what's the problem with that? The whole point of them doing that is to establish that they're really close friends. So when the reveal happens that they've been fighting each other's whole time, it creates a really nice payoff. That's why they're doing that. It's a simple setup process to get them together so that when something bad happens, the payoff, if you will, it makes that scene a lot stronger. Imagine if instead Zero and Lelouch, same person. Zero and Suzaku, or Lelouch and Suzaku, figure out their identities later on and there was no setup for it. It just kind of happened in the battlefield. That wouldn't be as impactful, in my opinion, because they didn't spend enough time together. They didn't go through all of those events where they were discussing what happened between the Black Knights and the Britannian forces. They had arguments. When Suzaku, again, I don't know for sure, but I assume that when Lelouch figured out Suzaku was the enemy the whole time, he thought about everything that happened prior to that. And then when Suzaku realized Lelouch was his enemy the whole time, again, all the prior stuff comes full circle because he realized the whole time Lelouch was being deceiving him. You don't really have those nice payoffs if they're not together in Ashford. Ashford happened to work in the situation, but they could have done it other ways as well. They chose Ashford because it was convenient. I wouldn't call it a contrivance. It was just convenient. Suzaku is high school age. Lelouch is high school age. So obviously they can be in high school together. And to top it all off, you also have Yuffie who forced him to go to the school. You take all that stuff together, and yes, there is nothing really bad about this. This is, again, another example where you simply don't like the way they chose to do this, and therefore you think it's stupid. I think it's fine because, like I said, it reinforces their friendship. It sets up the eventual reveal of each character, the reveal of each of what they've been doing the whole time, and that's what makes the ending conflicts much stronger. That's why Stage 7 has that part where Lelouch is freaking out. That's why we have that part in, obviously, the last episode where Zaku figures Lelouch is Zero in that whole confrontation. If they kill Zaku early off, or they don't have them meeting as often, then it kind of kills everything they had there. Now, one thing nice about the manga, by contrast, also shows more scene of them together. In my opinion, the problem with Zaku and Lelouch in this situation, not the fact that they were together in school, we didn't get enough scenes with them together. I would have liked more to really flesh out how close these two are as friends. Him being high, like I said before, it's just a setting, like anything else. There are always settings in shows. where characters simply interact there. If you don't like the setting, that's totally fine. But to act as if it's a substantial problem with the story is inaccurate. That's a you thing. Okay? It's totally a you thing. If you think it's ridiculous, everyone ends up at Ashford Academy, fine. That's fine. I don't care. It's your opinion. But don't act like, you see how stupid this is? It's clearly a problem. No, my friend, it is not a problem. It's telling a story. You can watch any anime. Like, okay, how about this? Let's say there's a story where there's a cafe, right? And the character just happens to go to the cafe to work there with everyone else. Is that a contrivance? No, it makes sense. Because they probably joined for the person. Or because someone told them to do it. I don't know. I mean, they established that Yuffie and Suzaku were becoming close at that time, and she told him to do it, and so that's why he's there. Otherwise, he wouldn't have gone to school. There really isn't a whole lot of conflict compared to what you're describing. He's going to mention something about the cat situation. I think he mentions that, but that's not. He does this. He'll do this. Like, he does it several times in the video where he'll point out like one conflict in the story between the characters that wasn't even that serious at some point, and be like, "See, it's always conflict." I'm like, "Where's the rest of it, my dude?" Mostly has nothing to do with anything, but okay. There's more to say here, but we got to move on the video. I have to get through 10 more minutes, so at least. Here we go.
The series is predictable in its bad writing.
No. Just no.
If the series wants to introduce a character, it'll usually do it in the most lazy way possible.
How was Cornelia's introduction lazy? My goodness. It wasn't like she just appeared randomly like, hey guys, I'm Cornelia. I'm the daughter of Charles, Clovis's sister. I'm here to take over Area 11, and I'm going to start right now. How they show Cornelia, she appears with Guilford and Dalton. They take out an area to demonstrate their power and ability, and they say they're going to go out there to Area 11 to take over that. Then when they get to Area 11, they fight against Lelouch, and she defeats him. That was her introduction to the story. That was not lazy. They first established she exists. Then she goes out there to fight Zero. It's a whole arc of episodes to get her introduced into the story. If she just appeared out of the blue, you might have an argument there. But she gets like her own 10 minutes. They show her mopping up the terrace throughout the parts where, what's it called? Where she was trying to like find Zero and stuff. And then I forgot about this, but Ryan mentioned, which I'll definitely note, Clovis literally said Cornelia's name. Very good. I forgot about that. Yeah, Clovis literally said Cornelia. He referenced her. Come on, dude. You wow, all right. But yeah, beyond all that, there was nothing lazy about Cornelia's introduction to the story. In fact, I like that part. It really demonstrated why she's powerful, why she should be feared, and what she's going to be doing. And also her attitude to the situation as well, where she's kind of like, I don't want to be here, but whatever. I'm going to take out Zero. And like, basically, she was doing something else that was more important. Now she has to cover for Clovis's incompetence. And also, of course, take out Zero. So that's bad. That's such an L take right there. You got to be kidding me.
If the series needs characters to develop, it'll have these disputes in the school, no matter how dumb they are.
You mean the Ashford students? Because obviously the Black Knights don't go to Ashford to have their discussions, right? Just saying. So that's already a bad take. And what was done about the discussion between Colin and Shirley in that situation? Shirley is confused as to what Colin's relationship with Lelouch is because she has literally seen the two of them together. So why would Shirley asking Colin if you would want to kiss Lelouch a problem? She's legitimately curious as to what their relationship is because she's also interested in Lelouch. I don't know why that would be a stupid conversation. She needs to know if there is a thing going on there because she's been trying to make a move for like forever now. Why is that stupid? It's high school. I will give you that. It's a very high school themed type of situation. But why is that stupid? You know what the word stupid means? Maybe not. I'm not even going to go into not going to go into that crap. But there was nothing really dumb about that particular conversation. Now, obviously, he's speaking more generally. I'm just mentioning that if you look at like that conversation itself is not a good example. Now, I want to make sure I got the point right. You say conflicts or just conversations or fights or whatever?
Character, it'll usually do it in the most lazy way possible. If the series needs characters to develop.
Okay, to develop. Okay, got it. Well, you know what? Actually, let me go on further with this. This is not even a development scene. They're just, Shirley's just asking Colin a question about something. The development for Shirley isn't people having an argument. It's when she had the courage to go ask Lelouch out. That was the development for her character. Colin's development happens not so much at Ashford. It happened like at the hospital with her mother because she forgives her. That was developing her character, of course. Saving her mother too. There was that. Her relationship with Zero didn't happen really in Ashford. I'm like thinking here like who else would have developed in Ashford specifically? Even Nina doesn't really develop in Ashford. Yeah, I don't know. This is such a strange like take, and you don't give examples too. Of course, there's nothing really stupid about, and like I said before, the discussion between the two of them is not stupid. It's very high school. It's high school themed. That's not dumb though. There's nothing wrong with asking her about what's going on there. It's a very reasonable a very reasonable thing considering the situation they are in. Maybe because you don't like the fact that it conflicts between the war situation and this high school life. That's a you thing. But to act like it's stupid is not a fair take here. Unbelievable.
It'll have these disputes in the school.
It's not even a dispute. See, he wants to say there's conflicts, but there aren't any. He wants a development. It's not done through disputes. The development happens through actions that characters take. They might talk about it, but the development happens through the actions. I don't know. I thought that's how that worked anyways. Maybe I'm wrong.
No matter how dumb they are. If there is a serious moment occurring, you can bet your ass that the anime is about to ruin that with a tone shift. If there is
You missed the point of why they showed that. As I said before, the reason why there's tone shifts in the story is not just because they're trying to ruin the moment. Wrong. Dead, as your word, dead wrong. Such provocative, stupid language. The verbiage here is so asinine. But here's the thing. The whole point of the tone shifts is to demonstrate the dichotomy between Lelouch's two lives as Zero and Lamproust, like I said before. The reason why I like that part where he gets a call is because Lelouch is balancing two lives. I think it'd be more unrealistic and using your word, stupid, if he's always Zero and his Ashford life never gets involved with that. It happens all the time. He's balancing two lives here. Even Colin has the same problem because you see her, I think it was stage 9 where she's like, this double life sucks. Lelouch is constantly sleeping through classes. I guess Spider-Man is stupid too, right? Because in Spider-Man, he's balancing his life as Peter Parker and also as Spider-Man. And he's the two conflicts going on in life. You might see something that's more friendly and great because he's, Peter Parker, but then you also have the bad stuff of Spider-Man or vice versa. There's nothing wrong with that. You're just showing a dichotomy of Lelouch's life. It also kind of shows you what he's losing by doing this. Him going off to fight Britannian means he's sacrificing the innocent life he has as an Ashford student. He's doing that obviously to save Nunnally and all that stuff, but it's showing you, again, the two lives he's living, what he stands to lose, and how he's always reminded of what he is or what he's reminded of that other life, whatever the situation is. There's also a scene where Shirley gives him the tickets, and then I said before, then Ogie gives him tickets, and he's thinking about Shirley's tickets. I don't know what the problem with that is, and like what I also said as well. What was I going to say? Oh, right. The other reason I showed the tone shifts is to demonstrate that at one end of this conflict, you have Britannians who are having a fun time, like the civilians. And the other end, the Japanese people are not having a fun time at it. That's the point, too. You're trying to show like there's the bad and good side of the current situation in war. Again, I thought it was obvious. The tone shifts, besides that, how rampant are they in the story? I guess if you want to nitpick, you could probably find a bunch. Again, it's one of those things where it's like, if you don't care, then you wouldn't notice, or if you understood why they were there, you again wouldn't notice. I've seen this complaint too when it comes to Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood. Like, oh, it's too jokey. There's too many like funny scenes with it. I'm like, that's ridiculous. That's a you problem. Stop acting like this is a critical problem with the story. Now, granted, you could argue, I wouldn't even give them the benefit of doubt if that disclaimer wasn't such BS and the tone here wasn't so asinine. But the whole idea where it's like, okay, this is just my opinion, and I'm not trying to hate Code Geass and all that stuff. And I know you're expressing how you feel about this series, but you said also I'm going to articulate what's the problem with it. The way you approach that, though, by saying what's the problem with it, almost implies like this is an issue to begin with, and it's not a critical issue. It's just something you're like, well, it took me out of the moment. Only you, buddy. That's all I'm saying. It's really frustrating how we're at this point. We're just like, literally, there's a reason why we're having this conflict of two different perspectives. I will not discuss it any further unless I have to, but you know what I'm saying.
Some very stupid logic being thrown around. A character will chime in with how stupid it is.
So he brought up earlier with Valletta. That wasn't stupid. She never said a plan was stupid. She simply said that I think you should consider this other aspect to it. And the gym was like, oh, yeah, well, don't worry about it. I have my Sarlin there. So that wasn't stupid. In this case, Cecile, again, is not calling it stupid. She's just wanting the hypocrisy of Britannian military. Which, by the way, what's the problem in general? Again, like I said before, people simply questioning, and I won't even say stupid, I guess the issues with something. Because, again, stupid's a very strong word to use here. I don't know if I'd use the word stupid. He throws it around a lot, but I wouldn't call it stupid. It's more like there's hypocritical aspects to some of the aspects in the story. I hate when he's the same word twice. And so, yes, in this scene here, Seal's wondering, well, if Suzaku's on Britannian, they still won't use him. What's the purpose of the system? Well, that exposes more of the problem with the show, the Britannian system, than whatever you're trying to say. One thing that show has, just to go on this particular point, one thing about Code Geass, or the universe of Code Geass, that Britannia is kind of evil. I don't know if you're aware of that. It's a dictatorship. And so obviously they're going to do things that may not make a whole lot of sense. You also have to consider the fact that there's a discussion here between the purebloods and Britannians, how they don't like Britannians in the system. So there are people who are actively fighting against the system as well, which makes perfect sense to me because obviously you have people who are, I guess, conservative of the old ways and they don't want the new crap in there. You got people who are trying to make change from within by adding these things in there. But no, the only thing you have to say about this is that, well, I mean, yes, the Britannian system, the honorary Britannian system could be pointless if people in it could still not do certain things. When you have people who are fighting against the active change that exists, that's naturally going to happen. To add to this, the discussion here is, how do I put this? To add, if this is a story implying it's saying its own law is stupid, is in itself stupid. Because what's happening here instead is simply people pointing out that while there's change happening in the system, there are people fighting actively against that change. Which is, again, what happens in most of the in social movements to change stuff. You'll have something instituted. It's not really what people want. Then you got people fighting against it. It's the hypocrisy isn't in the show's writing. It's the hypocrisy is in how the system itself, meaning Britannia, is horribly flawed. It's not stupid. It's just flawed. I know you might think I'm being like, maybe, how do I put this? The word usage there's no difference, but there really is, because stupid implies like there was no thought put into this and it's just all complete nonsense. It's not. It's actually a good parallel to real life. That's why they're bringing this up. There are examples too where characters do, again, question stuff, but in those contexts like this one, it's a logical thing to do. I'm sure you thought your superiors did stupid stuff, whether it be your boss, your teachers, even your parents, your friends, whoever. And you're like, well, that's kind of dumb. That's a very normal thing to do. I think like I said before, I think it'd be dumb if no one ever questioned anything. Also, in this particular scene, not that it matters, but Cecile has a bias for Suzaku, which we learn later on why that was the case. As I said before, and I'll say it now, if this is your best arguments, dude, you need to go back to the drawing board. This is so. This is just these are not valid arguments. These are you problems. They are not indicative the show is bad. And one thing to mention too is the fact that when characters do go against or suggest things on the contrary, notice how it doesn't feel artificial. Like the way they talk and describe their opinions, that's literally not artificial. That's it's natural sounding. Cecile has always, like, for example, let's go talk about Cecile for a moment. In the first episode, she questioned the whole gas situation, and Laura's like, "You figured it out." So of course, Cecile would ask the same type of question. She's very good at figuring this stuff out. So that's very in tune with her character. Valletta is also very intelligent in the same respect. She also can like look at the situation and realize, that's not quite right, or go into it further. That's another aspect too about this is that which character are questioning this? Would they normally do that to begin with? Does that go along with who they are? And the answer is, at least in two examples he's given, yes. Both characters are just doing what they have been doing the whole time. You don't like it because it goes against some strange, to use your words, strange perspective on writing, which is not even, in my opinion, a valid form of complaint, considering that literally people questioning anyone's actions, however stupid you think they are, is something that happens all the time. It's basic conversation. The fact that I had to go on a how long this one rant to describe that is really sad, but here we are.
If a character is told to do something for their own well-being, they will not do it at all.
I don't know what he means with Valletta. I was actually thinking about this the other day. Like, what did Valletta do that they told her not to do in terms of well-being? The only example I have is Jeremiah told her not to interfere or something, which she didn't do. I'm not really sure why he put Valletta here. I'm trying to remember what Valletta was told not to do. Wait, was it not to do and do, or do and not do? Which one was it?
If there is some very stupid logic being thrown
It's not stupid logic.
around, a character will chime in with how stupid it is. If a character is told to do something for their own well-being,
To do something and they won't.
they will not do it at all.
Now, I am kind of confused as to who he's even referring to this happened. There was that situation in Colin, which we'll get to in, oh my god, that's part, ugh. Not what Colin does, but what he does in his response. But I'm trying to example where characters were told not to do something and they did it anyways for their own well-being. Let me think. Give me like 5 seconds here. Okay. There's a scene with Suzaku, yes, but we established why he's doing that, so we can throw that one out. What else is there? C2 told Lelouch not to go out there. Oh yeah, because if he does, then he'll lose or something. But Lelouch's like, "Well, I got a plan, I guess." But she also realized he was right, so she let him go out anyways. So that doesn't really count. But sure. Let's also think what else happened, or people told him not to do something he did anyways. Again, Zaku is another example of him, but we can't. That doesn't matter because Zaku's situation is a little different. Jeremiah did say like stay out of it or something, but that doesn't really count. Let's see. Was the name of Ogi, Tamaki, Minami, Kento? I don't think so. Or Tara. I don't know about that. Did Millie was taught to do something? I feel like there's like maybe 3 examples. I don't know. It's not really a. I would say there's not many examples of this. It's in very small instances that I can think of. I don't know what the content behind this picture. I literally don't remember Valletta being told to do something for her well-being. I don't remember that happening in the story. There was a thing with Jeremiah, but again, that was. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not really sure what the context is behind the image. You see, usually, and again, I may be wrong on here, but when you generally put images or video in your, B-roll, if you will, into your video, in this case, A-roll, but whatever the case may be, there's a purpose behind it. I tried to do that in my videos. I don't know what the purpose behind showing Valletta's face here. Maybe there is something. I just don't know what it is. It's like a hair in my eye. I can't get it out. It's so frustrating. I was like, I can see it in my eye and I can't get it out or get rid of it. I'm not sure what the context is here, but we'll just move on because again.
Or alternatively, if a character is told not to do something, they'll do it anyways.
Again, these are small instances. But generally speaking, again, I'm trying to think of the first season when this happened. Yeah, Colin was supposed to not. Well, first of all, what happened in this sequence where she was like not supposed to do something? I don't know. Yes, Kira are told to do something and they do it anyways. Examples of this would be, again, Lelouch in C2, Suzaku, certain situation with him. When Colin went to go save Lelouch through the Geffen Disturbers, there was that. I can't think of too many critical parts where this happened. You'd have to like point them out to me. And I'm sure if you did point them out to me, you could probably go through the context behind why it happens. There was obviously a reason. It's not because it's stupid writing or the Code Geass sucks. I'm sure there was a reason why that happened. And because I'm able to pick apart the examples he brings up with rather ease, I'm sure that if he did discuss what they were, it'd be the same conclusion. Because context matters. Why the characters do what they do matters. That's why it's so frustrating when he's like, well, they won't do it. I'm like, is there a reason why they didn't do it? Maybe focus on that and then come back to me and be like, bring up an argument. If you guys state what they're doing, and he also, of course, got one of them wrong, which was hilarious because the guy claimed that he was only taking stuff that was factually accurately stating the story, which I don't know how we're there. I mean, how he got that wrong, but yeah, he's basically, I'll put it like this. He's taking very, I won't say small examples, but not common examples. But then implying that that's the whole story in a nutshell when it's just not. So yeah, I don't know. Especially when the rest of the analysis doesn't even go into half of the instances he mentions. He only like goes to a couple in the video. Maybe his Excel doc has more information, which I did go through once. It was very asinine. But would you expect anything different? I think we know the answer to that question.
And if you see that a character may ruin the plot by actually thinking with their brain,
Mao is not a smart character that was established early on in the story when he was introduced. He is childish and insane. He is not intelligent. He makes this mistake throughout the entire discussion of Mao's character. Mao is not smart. C2 literally calls him a child. She treats him like a child. He acts like a child. He is not a smart character. What a terrible example of someone who's getting close to the truth, if you will.
their progress will come to a halt.
The only two characters whose progress come to a halt is Valletta and Mao. And like I said, in context, the characters not doing what they're told or doing what they're told, which, by the way, just one more point about that. Characters acting consistent with who they are to an extent is fine if they end up doing something that's somewhat illogical. If it makes sense why they'd be doing it. There's obviously some leeway where that's not always true, though. But I would say, like, just because they're doing it doesn't mean it's necessarily a bad thing. That's the point I'm trying to bring up here. So to be like, well, I mean, characters acting like, I don't like this argument, but I'm going to use it here. I think it's appropriate, but I generally don't like this. Where it's like, so do you want people to just be like robots then, who don't use any who are just always logically thinking? Again, I don't like this argument because I think it's used incorrectly. But here, I think it makes sense because if the context wise can describe why a character acted like that, and we've seen them act like this before in the past, then I don't see the problem of it if they chose not to act logically. Which, by the way, is not even true in a couple instances that he'll bring up. But that being said, yeah, there's you need the context behind that. Now, with Mao, like I said, he's not smart, so move out of the way. Valletta and Mao are the only two characters who got close, and their progress was halted, if you will. And the fact that he words like that, it's how do I put this? It's just too simplistic of a perspective and not really thinking the bigger aspects of the story. That's why I hate him when he brings that up, because it's like, yeah, I guess if you want to look at it like that, but of course you're missing something, a word called context, but whatever. Who cares about context, why it happens? It doesn't matter. It was just written that way because it was written to be bad. It was written to be contrived. It was written because it was stupid, and so forth and so forth. We'll go over Mal and Valletta, and I'll say as much. Neither situation was contrived. It didn't feel like they're halting their progress. It made sense what was going on in the story. If you don't like that, that's a you problem. Please don't act like it's a fundamental issue with the anime and stop presenting it as such. And of course, it's important to note that Suzaku's progress was not halted to finding out who Lelouch was. And neither was Lelouch's progress in finding out who Suzaku was. Somehow they didn't get their progress halted, right? They both learned by each other and the story was fine with it. So obviously it wasn't a consistent theme throughout. If you want to go that direction, it really was not a consistent theme with the you people using their brains, so to speak. And that tone and language is so asinine.
2 episodes feature Euphemia being introduced by falling out of a window, a cat.
Let me guess. She fell out of the window, happened to land in Zaku's arms. Contrivance, right? It's just stupid. Don't even consider the context behind why she jumped out of the window to begin with, and what she was running from the whole situation. Don't even consider the context behind why that happened. Forget it. It doesn't matter. She was a contrivance because she happened to jump out the window. Suzaku happened to be there to catch her. Therefore, it's just bad writing altogether. It's just contrivance on top of contrivance, right? That's what this is. I honestly didn't see anything wrong with that. If you want to say it was kind of silly that she jumps off and she lands to his arms, fine, I guess. It's just like there are problems with Code Geass, which I've discussed in past videos. These are so minuscule; it's like not even an issue. These are things I don't even think about because these are tropes used in stories, some of which are not good and some are. But whatever, let's just see only the bad in what was done there. But again, there's no discussion, the context behind why Yuffie jumped in the first place, which is very important because the whole thing about her character arc. But who cares about that, right? Who cares?
Stealing Lelouch's helmet to develop Suzaku as a character. Oh,
I don't know if you can say that. The cat scene wasn't done to develop Suzaku as a character. That is a incorrect statement. Sorry, I sound like I'm like one of those homeless guys in those bars where like, let me tell you something. I was out there back the other day and there was a guy and yeah, it wasn't good. We got into a fist fight. I killed him, but Anyways, the whole point behind the cat scene was a couple of things. One, it doesn't develop either character. It just shows you the length of how Zaku was willing to go to save Lelouch. We didn't really even need that because technically in the first episode, Suzaku was going to save Lelouch by giving him the mask to prevent him being killed by the poison. So there is that, okay? The other point of the sequence was to have Suzaku join the Ashford Academy by meeting Lelouch's friends and then getting that whole thing set up. That's why the thing existed. It wasn't to develop Zaku's character. Suzaku at this point hasn't gone through a lot of development. His development happens throughout the battle, not because he decided to join Ashford Academy. If anything, the all he did there was just Lelouch developed, if you want to say. But I wouldn't even go that route. It's just a very... it's like, it was only done for these reasons. And then it's like, well, are those bad reasons? Like, God, everyone hates Stage 6. Stop hating on that episode. It's great.
welcoming party for said cat in an episode where the serious topic of drug addiction is explored.
For the last freaking time, you can have two opposing tones in a story and it doesn't ruin anything. Could you explain to me why Colin's mother having a drug addiction to refrain is juxtaposed an episode about a cat welcoming party is a problem when the scenes aren't really that connected, and it also demonstrates again the lives of the two people. The Britannians are having this wonderful celebration with this cat, and it's all fun and fine and dandy. And then meanwhile, the Japanese people are so messed up from losing the war that they're literally taking refrain, so they don't have to deal with the reality of the situation. Do you not see why that's actually quite well done there? You're literally showing that they caught the dichotomy again of the two sides in this conflict. You're showing, you're literally showing like why there's a conflict to begin with, why people are still fighting, why there's problems. That was the whole thing Lelouch mentioned in stage 4 when he told Colin, what's to the right of you? What's to the left of you? Right? The Britannians are leeching off the Japanese in more ways than one. Is that really a problem? Are we literally still going over this crap? Oh, by the way, the other thing about the cat party I should have mentioned is that it also develops Colin's character, which he did say, which I guess I'll admit this to be true. There is one part where Colin's character does develop, but it wasn't to a stupid argument or discussion. It was for the fact that she was starting to feel bad for Britannians because Colin hates them, but she wants the Ashford students to be okay. So she starts to realize her actions are actually having real consequences, positive changes, if you will. And that's important because it motivates Colin to keep staying with Zero. So there's, I guess if you want, here's your bone. There was a little bit of that in development. But generally speaking, though, it's not what you're implying. I don't know what the problem between the two perspectives are. Again, you have one side people are having a good time there, and where people are not having a good time, and they're even related to each other because that's Colin's mother. That was the whole like theme of that episode. You know, Colin's having a great time at it. She's not even aware their mother's suffering, and then when she figures it out, it's like it's too late or something, and she's like in jail or in the hospital and stuff like that. So, to simplify it as he did is just really insulting to what's going on in the context of the scene. To put it lightly, it is really frustrating. Like I said before, there's an important word. It's called context. You don't take into account any of it when discussing this show. It's only black and white with you, everything. And even when you go black and white, it's still wrong. Very wrong.
Jeremiah nearly being killed because he didn't eject from his Sutherland when Valletta told him to. And one of my favorites.
Okay. This is our example, by the way, he mentioned, so we'll go through it, where a character was told to do something and they won't do it. All right, let's analyze the context behind the situation. Because it's kind of important, right? You know, why would characters act this way? Don't even go into it. Just throw blanket statements and keep moving on. Speed through these because you're going to attack a really good show and you want to like just throw these zingers out there without going further into it. Okay. Why did Jeremiah tell Valletta he wasn't going to eject? Why he didn't want to eject? Let's look what happened to Jeremiah in the last several episodes, okay? Lelouch used Geass on him, and it ruined his life. He ended up betraying the Britannian forces. He was jailed for it. Guilford told him you have two options. Start at the beginning or go to an orange farm. Jeremiah's life is basically ruined at this point. Considering what he's been trying to do from the onset, one, make up for Marian's death, which is the main thing, and also trying to rise in the ranks as well. His life was in the military was essentially ruined, and that's why he is so determined to kill Zero because he ruined his life, and also to regain what he had. In Jeremiah's mind, I think it's a very reasonable thing to assume, if he can't stop Zero, his career is over, and in his mind, he might as well just be dead at that point. He's also blinded by his rage towards Zero, and that's why he's acting that way. Considering how we've seen him act like this kind of in the past, to some extent, where he's very stubborn. Jeremiah is a very stubborn character. There is nothing wrong with him doing this. If you don't look into the context behind why Jeremiah was doing this, then obviously you would assume the worst, which is this entire video in a nutshell. But considering it happened to Jeremiah, I understand why he felt that way. He was a broken man with no career, no respect from anybody, and he now has to believe something that didn't happen. He's confused what's going on. He had a chance to kill Zero. It's only he has left going for him. That's why he was so determined to do it. If he couldn't do it, then obviously, what does he have to live for at that point? That was going on there. And again, like everything else, I'm not really even trying too hard to debunk these points. This is just, hey, this is what happened in the story. I'm connecting pieces. Here's the conclusion. Wow, I figured this stuff out within a couple minutes, but 2 years. Oh boy. All right.
Lloyd absolutely destroying Suzaku's horrendous logic for not wanting to kill people in battle.
Well, not purposely if he could avoid it, right? I think you're misinterpreting what's going on in this discussion, because he said he's in the army so he won't die. He never said he wouldn't kill anybody. He just said he wants to so no one would die. I think, again, he is prepared to kill people. He killed his father, so that's not the problem. The problem, he's trying to end conflict without killing as many people as possible. That's the point. If he can avoid killing people, he will do it. It's only as a last resort. That was that whole conflict. Remember that part where he told Lelouch he's going to kill people, right? Remember that part? There's a reason why that was important. I guess you missed that. I don't know. Also notice that Cecile grabs Lloyd and, does this to him. Why do you think that was? Because she realized he's just being asinine. Lloyd in general is a troll. He always contradicts or points out his opinions about the different groups and factions. Like he mentioned like the whole hypocrisy with the Black Knights, or not pop, but like he's like, are they really knights for justice? What a strange word. Lloyd's kind of a troll. It doesn't mean he's always right. A lot of people call him out as bullshit all the time, specifically Cecile, Rakshata. So to act like, he's destroying Zaku here. He's merely just wondering his contradictions, what he feels are contradictions, and why Zaku is in the army. Which again, as I've established earlier, you can be in the army and you can be saving people's lives. It is very... Didn't Lelouch say this, if I'm not mistaken? What was it? How will the conflict end? Remember in stage 5, he said, when somebody wins. Remember that? When somebody wins. That implies the whole fighting ends. But you got to do fighting to stop the fighting. Even Lelouch was saying the same philosophy to an extent. So the reason I bring that up is because he mentioned earlier that Lelouch's philosophy was clearly smarter than Zaku's, and him not joining him was a problem or some sort, even though Lelouch believes in Zaku's philosophy. So what's the issue there? They had some similarities. Like basically Zaku and Lelouch had the same general idea of how they wanted to make change. Or let me try that again, because that is just not true. They had the same general belief about how you would win it. Basically, you stop the fighting, right? They both believed that if you stop the fighting, that will end the conflict. Zaku's was more like, we'll do it from within. I'll do it from their side. Lelouch's like, we'll do it from my side. The conflict is really how to do it, not what they both want to do. That was the point behind that. I hope that makes sense. But the whole idea that, again, he keeps going on this whole, you're in the army, therefore, if you don't want to kill people, that doesn't make any sense. Even though just do a little research on how that works. That's not true. And I already mentioned the coder example. I don't want to go through that again.
Despite this, the middle of Code Geass is especially odd, because you see a few things here and there that would belong in a good series, but they're...
I think he brings up this point in particular with Tamaki, because they're questioning Zero. That makes sense. But then they believe him. That's dumb, Or because he threatened to shoot himself or something. I don't know.
Overshadowed quickly by the series shitting all over your face.
Come on. What a stupid claim. How does anyone take this video seriously? Shitting on your face. All these bodily functions, descriptions to describe how he hates the show is so asinine. This is how you know you can't take the show seriously. It's just him being very vapid, as he would say, of using these really disgusting metaphors to describe Code Geass when it's completely unfounded. Just completely unfounded garbage.
I think there's real merit in having Toto being introduced strongly. The series does exposition in an interesting way via a news report, and there's proper reference of characters for later introduction.
Yet somehow you ignored Cornelia's, right? Man, inconsistency is my ass. And like I said before, no virtual language can change the fact that what you said meant nothing. There are clearly setups and context behind things you choose to ignore. But whatever, man. It's your thing, I guess. Didn't you? They also just count early on. You call that contrived. So you're not even consistent with your own perspective on this. But sure.
But then Code Geass goes back to its strange ways.
You know what's coming next, guys. You know what's coming next.
In one of the most bizarre scenes ever, Nina, who has become infatuated with Euphemia, is seen masturbating to her using the edge of a table. What the fuck? This is...
Oh my god. It's like... Again, I'm not laughing because he's funny. I'm laughing because it's just such an obnoxious critique on the sequence. And some people defended why he made the comment was just even worse. All right, let's continue on with this.
Never referenced again. It begins using a hard cut from another scene that has absolutely nothing to do with this. Then it hard cuts to another scene like this never happened. And best of all, Nunnally walks in after Nina is done doing the deed, but because she's blind, she can't tell what's happening. Someone legitimately thought that this would be a good idea to write and animate, although I can't be surprised, as this episode is a 1-2 punch because it also introduces Mao.
Okay, a lot to break down here with the flaws of this point, and there are a ton. There literally are. Okay, but it doesn't weigh a ton though. The cuts, again, not a problem. That's a you thing. It's okay to cut between two different things happening at the same time. They don't have to relate to each other. Okay, they don't. Sometimes they're not. Sometimes they have nothing to do with each other. You have stuff like you have things like Pulp Fiction or films like that where they'll show alternate perspectives and different cuts where the events are not related to each other. There's a lot of generic writings. There's a lot of different styles of storytelling. They don't have to follow a specific formulaic way that you want it to be. This seems like a you problem, which, to be fair, I guess is somewhat accurate to the video's title. So there's that. Now let's talk about the scene with Nina, right? First of all, when I watched it, I never really thought much of it. I literally, I'm. You can call me a liar, and that's you if you want to. But when I first watched Code Geass and I saw Nina's scene, I was like, okay, I moved the hell on. It was only after joining the fandom that I realized that this was actually a problem people had. It was discussed on Reddit, and then of course not Reddit, but like even before that, Table Kun and all that stuff. And like this is something I never was aware of because I wasn't really involved in the Code Geass fandom. As me personally watching it, I was like, oh, okay, fine, whatever. I don't care. Moving on. People's hyperfixation on that table scene is so obnoxious at this point that even commenting on it doesn't mean anything. But since you made some complaints, let's discuss those complaints, shall we? You said no one referenced it. It never gets referenced again. Why the hell would it get referenced? Who would reference it? Not only doesn't know what happened, and what we need to tell everyone, hey guys, guess what I was doing yesterday? Like, why would that be referenced again? Like directly referenced? Is it indirectly referenced? Kinda. I mean, there are scenes when Nina tells the student council, hey, I want to be with Yuffie, and she's blushing. We now know why she was blushing, okay? So, I guess it's referenced in that context, if you will, and it also explains why she's so devoted to Euphemia. I don't... I'm still trying to get over the argument it was never referenced again. Even though why would you do that? Like, I know maybe I'm being nitpicky myself to an extent, but I'm just trying to understand, like, why would you? I don't know. We'll move on from that point. Now, why does the table scene exist, right? Because he's like, someone thought of this and wrote it out. Why do they show this stuff? Okay. Why does the scene exist with Nina and the table? Which, again, I never thought was a problem until literally people told me it was. Like everything else in the show, apparently. Well, to some extent. What the table scene shows is that Nina is definitely Nina's feelings towards Euphemia. It is both a goddess worship, but also a sexual attraction. That's the purpose of the scene. It confirms something you might have been thinking. Now, did it have to show the full extent of the scene? Probably not. Okay, probably not. But they were trying to show that specific sequence because, again, they're making it very clear how Yuffie feels, how Nina feels about Yuffie. There's a part before where she blushes when thinking about her, and then we actually see how she really feels. Another thing to consider, and again, this is pure speculation because I don't know this, but Code Geass was heavily influenced by Evangelion. In fact, I've argued, and will continue to argue, and make a video about it at some point, that people have to stop comparing Code Geass to Death Note, compare it to Evangelion instead, because those two shows have way more in common than I think most people even consider or ever thought about. And the reason why is because the shows are vast. They feel like they're vastly different, but they're really not. I mean, obviously, like once you get past the I guess the simple elements, like the main plot peripherals, when you go deeper into the characters and the story elements, they're actually quite similar. So now, considering keeping all that in mind, why bring up Evangelion? Well, in Evangelion, one thing it does really well is that you'll get situations where characters will have discussions, arguments, or certain scenes where you feel like you should be watching this because it's a quote unquote a private moment. For example, you have Asuka dealing with her period problems, which was a really hard scene. There are arguments between Shinji and Misato that are really hard to watch. And again, you feel very uncomfortable, like you shouldn't be here. You know how like when parents fight in front of kids, like you feel like the kid right there, you shouldn't be watching this. Or perhaps you're at a party and there's a couple fighting and you're like, I shouldn't be here, this is a private moment. So in a sense, Code Geass copied Evangelion by showing a private moment with Nina that we really shouldn't be seeing, but we are seeing it as a way to make us feel uncomfortable. You're supposed to feel uncomfortable watching that sequence. At least that is my perspective on that. That is what they were trying to do. That's how they were copying Evangelion. That's how it influenced the scene. If you don't really understand that, well, that's fine because most people probably haven't watched Evangelion and thought about this because most people don't have time to do so, and that's a whole other discussion which I will not get into at this moment. Now, another thing to discuss when it comes to the scene is that there are other things they're trying to show. These are stretches, I will definitely admit. These are a bit of a stretch, but it kind of makes sense. Number one, Nina is doing this with the lights off because she's obviously ashamed of who she is and what she's doing. Because if you remember in stage 6, there was a clear discussion about how people in the story are homophobic. There's also a picture drama which kind of contradicts that, which is why, again, not the strongest point, but you notice how the entire time where she's doing this, it's a very private, in darkness, and she feels bitter shame when Nunnally finds her. So, obviously, Nina is not comfortable who she is. She's not comfortable in her own skin, and she has to do this privately. Now, why she couldn't wait until she got home, I don't know. That's my only real problem with the sequence, is why she couldn't just do it at home. I don't know. Why was she doing it in the school building? That's the only thing that's kind of weird to me. Having Nelly walk in there was actually kind of funny because she's the one person who wouldn't notice what's going on. I think that was interesting. She just heard noises too, which was pretty funny. But yeah, I don't know. This is to me like I feel like there's meta elements creeping into this where it's like I think people know at this point that scene is infamous for whatever reason. I shouldn't say whatever. I know the reason. But I think it's unwarranted at this point, especially since people use it as like an argument to not justify Nina's character growth or how she's actually not a terrible character like everyone else said, like everyone says she is. That's like my big take. I think Nina's not the worst character in Code Geass, and the fact that people think she is shows they don't understand or they don't want to understand, would be a better argument of how she developed in the series. So I believe I got all the points there. I have notes, by the way. That's why I'm like looking to the right. I'm just making sure I didn't miss anything. Yeah, okay, that's what I got. Point being is that if you want to hate on it for whatever reason, you're welcome to do so. But to also ignore why the scene exists or why it could exist, because again, I'm not behind. I don't know the real reason, but there are legitimate reasons for why they went this route with the Nina. The complaints he makes here are unwarranted and lack the nuance. But that's the whole video.
And with that, the time has come to talk about even more major contrivances this series pulls out of its own ass. Obviously, it would be bad if people knew who Zero was, which is why he keeps his identity a secret to the Black Knights. Valletta is eventually the one who puts two and two together and figures out that Lelouch has something to do with all this. She uses Shirley as bait to try and find out what his role in the Black Knights is. Shirley is a horrible character. Calling her a character is a compliment. I often complain about how the women in Sword Art Online cannot develop because they are constantly talking about Kirito and not themselves. Same case here, because while I can't be 100% sure, I'm almost certain that every single line, and I mean every single line that Shirley has, is about Lelouch. It's one thing to be in love, but it's an entirely different thing to only exist to lick dick and to serve as tension bait for the plot and writing. Shirley finds...
That was quite a mouthful, wasn't it? First of all, the licking dick thing is really inappropriate, considering that Shirley isn't even in that situation with Lelouch, and it is a sexual, obviously, connection, but also a romantic one. So that's kind of insulting to that. Now, I was curious about his point because, after all, he made a somewhat factual statement that everything Shirley talks about is in relation to Lelouch. So I went through all the episodes to figure out if that was the case or not. And when I was doing it, to some extent, he is correct. Shirley spends a lot of time talking about Lelouch. But what I find interesting about this, going through the dialogue, is that if you go through what she's talking about, there really isn't anything wrong here, and there is development in her character. Her development, yes, it revolves around Lelouch. But the reason why that's not a problem, the reason why it doesn't make her less of a character, is because Shirley is part of the high school elements to the story. So her situation is not that complicated compared to Lelouch's development or Suzaku's development. For Shirley, the main goal she's trying to figure out is there a connection between her and Lelouch, and of course her getting the courage to go ask him out, and then of course dealing with the situation of the fact that he killed her father, and then of course you got the situation of her trying to get her memories back, and there's a whole stuff with there's some infighting between her and Colin because she thinks that Lelouch and Colin might be a couple, and she just wants to know what that is before she moves in because Shirley's again very nervous. We learn about like why she's interested in Lelouch, the whole story behind that stuff, which also gives insight to his character. And again, her getting the courage to go and talk to Lelouch is her development. To act like that's not a thing is really frustrating to me because you're kind of ignoring like the writing, if you will. So by his logic, and he uses Shirley as a romance, but let's apply to something else just to demonstrate how ridiculous this is. If a character is focused solely on one thing and only focused on that one aspect, whatever it is, they're not a character because they don't develop, right? See how dumb that is? Because in Shirley's case, it's like she's focused on trying to start a relationship with Lelouch, which leads to like a bunch of other stuff where her character is actually tested in some of the worst ways possible. But whatever. Let's not discuss any of those aspects to it. But yeah, this is really stupid. Like I said, I went through the actual discussions things she says throughout the story. Some of it has nothing to do with Lelouch, and some of it does, which is fine. But again, if you go through it, you'll see like it's a progression of ideas that are happening. Like I said before, with the complaint about Shirley and Colin having that argument of who loves Lelouch or who doesn't, or would you kiss him, something like that. It makes sense though. You're acting like these things are just just dumb. This is such a you problem, man. Such a you problem. As I'm going through this stuff, again, there's I don't know. I'm not going to read the whole list, but I mean, if you watch the show, you know what I'm talking about. But there is development here. Like I said, it's the main early on in the story. Her growth is to ask Lelouch out. She couldn't do it before because she was very nervous. She's been trying to do this for years. They mentioned that in stage 7. Then later on, it ends up being a situation where she lost her memories, and so there's that side plot where she's trying to figure out what the hell is going on. She knows to connect to Lelouch because he's the one who affected her memories. She also wrote that letter. She's trying to figure out what's going on with that. These are obviously things happening with her. Shirley isn't exactly a main character, so I don't expect her to have a huge part in the story compared to something like Lelouch or Zaku or Colin, or C2 for that matter. And again, Shirley represents the innocent life Lelouch had in high school. She's part of the high school element of the story. I wouldn't expect a huge dramatic thing from a side character in a high school story. Now, are there examples where that is the case? Sure. I'm not saying you can't do it. I'm just saying because it's not the case doesn't make it bad. I never feel like Shirley didn't develop in the story, especially again when she was challenged in some of the worst ways possible, like when she got a chance to kiss Lelouch, but it was from the worst circumstances possible. She's getting what she wants, but she doesn't even like it because of how it happened, and so forth. It's hard for me to put into words how to defend this because I feel like this is just like obvious. His arguments are just absurd at this point. We're literally questioning like how do you quantify what is what's not a character essentially? Is it because they don't go through a series of development, or are they not an actual individual person? Which, by the way, Shirley has both of those qualities. For example, we know that she's an athlete. She's a little self-conscious of herself, kind of shy, despite seeming like she has a nice like personality. She actually showed no racist intention towards Suzaku, very opening to welcome him. She's against Lelouch going gambling, which he stated multiple times. So she probably is against breaking the rules in general. She told Millie to like stop with the bottle. So yeah, I don't know. Like I feel like we're getting to a strange territory where you're calling the question of like she's not a character. You don't really define what is a character and what isn't. And you might think that's very nitpicky, but I mean, if you're going to make an absolute statement, which you said isn't, but again, you're kind of implying it's an absolute statement, you really have to justify exactly why does Shirley being specifically interested in Lelouch is a problem, especially, like I said, the later part of the show, she's trying to find him to talk to him because her memories are fudged up, thanks to Lelouch, which she found out in a letter. So I don't like, do you see what I'm trying to point out here? It's like, is that not a character? I mean, like, and again, the lick dick thing is so obnoxious. Every point he makes in this is so freaking obnoxious. There's no good discussion to have from here. The people who think this is funny are immature as hell. Very immature, and like don't even know the freaking story begin with. Lick dick. Wow. Because if you knew Shirley's character, you know that's not something she was ever thinking about. Oh my god. Yeah, I mean, I got more notes here, but we'll stick with that. I think you guys get the point. Okay, I'll say one more thing I wrote here. I think it's important, which is that there's actually a part where she's challenged in her beliefs if she should stay with Lelouch or not, and she chose to stay with him. That is more developed in R2. But that's important as well because Shirley's a tragic character who fell in love with someone who ended up ruining her own life, and maybe she should never stay with Lelouch, and maybe that's the problem with her journey in the story. But to act like that's not actually a character thing is kind of sad to me. If you want to talk about a complaint with Shirley's character, you could argue that maybe they should have made her commit one way or the other. Either she's going to be with Lelouch or not after she, because they couldn't decide with that. The memory loss was to set her back a little bit, and then they had to bring her back into the story, but then it killed her off. It was like they couldn't decide what they wanted to do with Shirley. That's the problem for her character, not because she's licking dick. It's because they couldn't commit to what they want her character to be. That's my problem with Shirley. But that has nothing to do with her being a legitimate character or not. What a terrible take in general.
out that Lelouch is zero, and Valletta says that she's going to turn him in and get a promotion. However, Valletta soon realizes, like we all must have, that she is far too smart a character and that her progress must be stopped because otherwise the series blows up if Cornelia Lee Britannia, the new viceroy of Area 11, finds out that her thought to be dead brother Lelouch is actually zero. Shirley shoots.
Well, to an extent, there is some truth to this. However, I argued in my analysis of stage, I think it was 7. Yeah, it was stage 7. That if Lelouch was captured by Cornelia, it's not really game over because he has Geass power, and Cornelia doesn't know what that is. He could use it on Cornelia if he saw her in person, and then he can go back to what he was doing, even get the answers he wanted. So I wouldn't say that this is straight out a factual statement. Since you know how powerful Geass is, you staying is also not a fair point. Now, I think why he mentioned that particular statement is because of the fact that maybe the story was framing it in that way. Also consider the fact that C2 wasn't too far away, so she would have gotten involved because C2 will do whatever she can to help out Lelouch. So there's those two factors to consider. Now, that didn't happen. I'm not saying they wouldn't happen, but I'm saying we know from pre-establishment of the story that could happen. So there's that. Now, again, if you want to look at the story from a simplistic point of view and simply, I said simplistic and simply, okay, as yes, she got too close, therefore she must be stopped. Sure, whatever. But let's look at the context behind what happened here. Valletta was not stopped due to her stupidity or bad writing. It was just a mistake. That happens a lot. A mistake that maybe she could have prepared for, but ultimately did not. What was that mistake? Simply this. She picked Shirley to go with her. That was smart because it's something that Lelouch knows. She didn't know they were particularly close. She didn't know that Shirley would even shoot her if she figured out Lelouch was in danger. Why would anyone suspect that from a random high school student? Now, granted, maybe she might have felt that way because Zero killed her father, which she is aware of. So perhaps maybe that's why she would have. But again, that would imply why she would shoot Zero, not her, though. So maybe bringing Shirley on was not the best decision, and from that point of view, because you could argue that, yes, if she brings Shirley along, she might want to take action to her own hands. But she had no gun, and Shirley didn't even act that way when they were together. So it's a bit of a stretch to say that it was pure stupidity to bring Shirley along. I'm not even saying she's saying that. I'm just trying to point out, the facts of the case as best I understand them. So what you have here instead is you just don't like this show, and you're pointing out a decision, a story of conflicts happening, and as a result, you just don't like it. Okay? This is a similar trope to when a villain could finish off someone but does not choose to do so. And again, I think in that case, though, it's a much more egregious example of bad writing to an extent, but I'm not against it. And if you talk to people who directed their movies like that or shows, I mean, they explain why they do it like that. It's a trope. I don't know if this is a trope. I've seen in other stories too where characters get close and then they get stopped. Oh, my camera died. All right, 1 second. 1 second. Okay. So I'll just keep talking while I'm thinking here. So, for example, would you argue that in Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood, that when May Hughes, something happens to him, well, I'll just say much first, non-spoilers, in case you guys don't know, but May Hughes was close to accomplishing something, and the story just stopped his progress. Would you call that a contrivance? The answer is no. It's just something happened in the story because they didn't want to stop the plans. You might think that's not the same thing, but it's another example in my mind of something similar where a character got close to figuring out the truth, and because if May Hughes had figured it out and told everyone, that might have ruined everyone's plans. So was that a bad piece of writing? The answer is no. The death, damn it, sorry, spoilers. Mayhew's incident, it actually influences Roy Mustang in the story, and it's a big reminder of other things going on. So there's nothing wrong with using this quote-unquote trope that you don't like, as long as the context behind it makes sense. To act as if the very existence of it is a problem is not a problem. Or I should say, is a problem. But it's not. Hold on. Sorry, this happens all the time on camera. It's amazing. It's a miracle. It's actually working correctly. Again, if you watch my previous streams, my camera literally dies and people are like, oh no, try your plug-in. I'm like, I did, and it failed. So, there you go. All right. But the whole notion of like, because the trope, and I don't think it's even a trope, is used, therefore it's inherently bad. It's not inherently a bad thing to use this in the first place. Again, as long as it makes sense. And it did. Everything Valletta did for the most part was the right call. She just didn't know that Shirley and Lelouch were close. Should she have brought Ribbles instead? Maybe. But I think Shirley kind of worked here because she also had an ulterior motive to work, or motivation to help out, because Zero did kill her father, right? So I just don't know, like, man, it's like, because she was so smart, the story had to stop her. Why are you so, like, it's not a conspiracy, man. You know, it's so frustrating.
And Valletta gets amnesia. Yes, that's right. Valletta is shot in the stomach and gets amnesia. You see what I'm talking about with this shit? A character got too close to the truth, so now they must be stopped and reset while the plot continues. Except Code Geass is so incompetent that it can't even do this correctly. I don't know how many people have gotten amnesia from being shot in the stomach, but I imagine that this number has to be very low. So low that you'd have to be aware as a writer that this is so inconceivable that it's garbage. I guess not.
I guess not. Okay, that was kind of mean.
Someone may pose the argument that she hit her head or that she fell off the pier, but we never see this. A character gets amnesia and their head is never once shown hitting any surface. This only gets even more and more.
Okay. There's a lot to break down here. I mean, a lot. The first thing we got to talk about, and there's a lot of things to discuss here. Okay. Valletta was not shot in the stomach. Let's just start with that initial premise. Remember what he said at the beginning of this video? Nothing I say is fact unless it was outright stated in the story. And then people told me in the comments, no offense to anyone, I'm not telling anyone personally, but you guys said stuff like, he said everything was truthful. Everything he said was correct. Valletta was not shot in the stomach. I'm going to prove it to you right now. Now, I'm going to have to do some things here because I can't, like, well, once you see, you'll understand. So let me open this up real quick. I'm going to prove to you right now that that is a complete lie, okay? And the funny part is, when I read through his notes, which we'll go through if you're interested, he literally pointed this out and still got this wrong. That's how you know how stupid this is. For someone who claims that everything is, for the man who complains about stupidity, he's sure to know it's the most obvious thing in front of him. All right. Give me a second here. Hopefully, God, it doesn't play on this side. Even if it does, that's okay. I just want to get to a certain scene. I don't want the whole thing to pop up. All right. Let me go. Oh, yeah, you don't see that anyway. I forgot. I'm not sure the screen. Someone said I'm tired. I am a little tired, yes. Of this garbage. No, I know my jokes are bad. I do apologize. Okay. Hold on. Let me mute this. Give me a second. It's almost, I'm going really slow here to get to the scene. All right. Come on. Okay. I'm going to do my best I can censor this. This is very important. Okay. I think you guys know where I'm going with this. So I gotta get one more thing and then we're good to go. And I can show you what I'm talking about. Okay. I got an idea for an image to cover it up with. Give me a second. You're thinking this is funny. Okay. I'll have it ready in a couple seconds here. I just gotta be careful because you can't show nudity on YouTube. I should have probably just censored on my own, but I think it's actually way funnier. Okay. Oh man, really? This is okay. This might be harder than I thought. Let's see. Damn it, Valletta. I really want to show this to you guys, but it's hard because if I. All right, 1 second. I got another idea. I'm gonna do some Photoshop stuff in like 2 seconds here. Okay, give me a second here. I gotta do some Photoshop stuff. Bear with me, okay? I didn't think about this before the video. I do apologize. I'll keep this in mind going forward. All right. I was gonna put Rivel's face there, but I don't think that's gonna work. I don't think that's a good idea. All right, 1 second. 1 second. Okay. Maybe I can get it to work, but it's gonna be very difficult. Let me just do what I was gonna do originally. Let me open up. All right, guys, you're now invited to the second part of this stream, which was not initially intended, but this is the Photoshop tutorial on how to use blurs. You know how blurs work? You're gonna find out real quick. You're gonna learn something today. Freaking Kevin Hart. Wait a minute. Where is my? Hold on a second. Give me a second here. Window. Oh, okay. I was like, where's my stuff? Here we go. Okay. So what you do with the blur is you first want to go to an image, and then you want to make it a smart object. That way, when you put a filter on it, you can actually decide what you want it to look like. That way, you can mess with the filters, if you guys didn't know. So I'm going to put a filter on this. It's going to be a blur, a Gaussian blur, and oh, wait, hold on. Cancel that. I'm going to use an object. So you can put like a square or a circle, whatever you want, around the area you want to do this to. I don't think you have to blur it, honestly. I could probably just do that. Okay. All right. I think that's fine. Okay. Okay. The reason why I brought this whole tangent up, which again, I do apologize. I thought I could do something funny with this, but it didn't. Oh, you know what? I still can't. Sorry. One last thing. Watch this. Okay. I can have my cake and eat it too. Let me go. There we go. All right. Let me grab Rivals over here. Because this is really funny. I swear. I promise to be really funny. Just bear with me here for a second. Okay. I'm going to paste. Wait, what the hell? I don't know. Rivals. I want Rivals. Why did that happen? Photoshop, stop being annoying. Okay. And then we're going to go to the ellipsis. I'm going to paste over. I'm going to then do a clipping mask. And bam. Perfect. Okay. Now, you'll have to take my word on this, but you can definitely look at it yourself. There's a scene in stage 15 where Ogie's with Valletta and Valletta's naked. You see her chest. Okay? Let's go open my image. Can you see this? Let me zoom in. Hold on. And just in case so I don't run into any problems, I'm also going to lock the layers so I can't accidentally reveal something I don't want to. Let me just lock all these layers just to be safe. Okay. Okay, so Valletta. So he said, I'm sorry. Valletta is naked and she shows off her assets to Ogie. Okay? Right? With me so far? All right. So why does this scene exist? Well, according to DX in his document, which we can go through again, you'll see that he mentions, oh, it's just fan service, piss off. Well, here's the thing about this image, and I discussed this before. You see her entire torso, right? From the top of the trunk to the head. Where are the bandages on her body? We have arm, this here, and then the arm over here. You can't see it because her boob is like literally above her arm. Okay, take my word for it. There is a little bandage right here on her stomach. Little bandage. You think a bullet went through here, or do you think it went through her arms? Where are all of the injuries on Valletta's body? It's her arms. There's a little, that looks like a scratch, a bandage for a scratch wound. She was shot in the arm. Do you see how like dumb this is? I literally just looked at the sequence because when he mentioned it originally, just like when I first watched this video, I was like, that can't be right. And I watched it and I was like, it wasn't. She was shot in the arm somewhere. She wasn't shot in the chest. I mean, in the stomach. Okay, so people said that this guy wasn't making stuff up. I just proved you he was. Other cases, it's bad interpretation. Here, it's literally just saying things that didn't happen. So, wow. It's just really dumb. Okay, so there you go. So so the whole notion she was shot in the stomach, she was not. The reason why I'm harping on this is because, again, it brings up the whole point of how this person claimed he spent 2 years really thinking about this. Yet when he went through the script to create this, he didn't bother fact checking if any of this stuff was actually accurate or not. All right, there you guys go. Hope you enjoyed the Photoshop aspect of this stream. There will be more of this to come, I guess. And Ribble's face on her chest, I think, is just too funny to me. Okay. I'll reference it again if we need it, but I'll keep it minimized for the moment. Now, that in itself is not a problem. Like, it's a problem from the reason I mentioned, but like in terms of the argument itself that he's mentioning, we got to go through that as well. We don't know how Valletta actually had memory loss. We have ideas, and that's about it. It never says one way or the other. Yet he has confidence due to being shot in the stomach. He doesn't really state exactly what that means or how that would do anything. So allow me to fill in the blanks because I actually did some research. Now, according to what I've read, and I'm not a doctor, I've never claimed to be a doctor, this is not medical advice, and you know you would be coming here for me, Chop's medical advice. Although it's funny because there's M's in my name. But anyhow, you can get memory loss from trauma, post-traumatic stress disorder, head injuries, okay? All kinds of stuff. We don't know which of these was the cause of Valletta's memory loss. So to act as if you're confident it was her being shot in the stomach is asinine to me. Now let's entertain that idea for a moment because there is something that he brings up unintentionally and unironically is that Valletta, like the area she was shot in. There's actually a problem with Valletta that he completely missed. In his pure rage and frustration with the show, he actually missed one of the critical problems with that entire sequence that is actually a problem, which is this. Valletta is shot in the stomach, okay? Which she was not. She was shot in the arm. She was then left in a pier for, I'd say, hours. Probably all night, so that's like, 8 hours? And then halfway through the next day. Let's say 12 to 14 hours she was unattended to after being shot. That means Valletta should be dead. If she experienced blood loss for that period of time, she should be dead. There is no memory loss. There's no life, period. That's the problem with the sequence. Ogi should have found her in the pier immediately after she was shot. Like the same night. Because there's no way Ogi could have saved her. There's no way he could have found... The bandages wouldn't have saved her. He didn't bring her to a hospital. Valletta is good as dead at this point. If she was in fact shot by Shirley. You can also argue if she wasn't shot by Shirley and the arm injuries you're seeing are just from the result of falling. I don't know. It's not entirely clear. They black stuff out on purpose, I guess. But let's assume she was shot. Valletta should be dead. That's the problem with the sequence. Not that she lost her memories. Now, let's discuss something else for a moment. If it was due to being shot in the stomach, which again it wasn't, then that must have been through something called blood loss. I don't know why I said it like that. Now, from what I understand, and again, I could be wrong, but if someone is experiencing memory loss due to blood loss, it's because The oxygen, there's not enough blood for the oxygen in the brain to work properly. And so that's why they can't remember certain things. Again, I'm not a doctor. I could be misunderstanding the medical journals correctly or literature, but that's what I thought I read. Which means, and this is the bigger point here, if Valletta was having memory loss due to being shot, then she would probably was on her way out of living because that means she lost too much blood. That's the point. So the story itself doesn't promote this perspective based on simple medical knowledge about how things work. With that being said, that means that Valletta's memory loss must have been something traumatic, either through PTSD or something of that nature, maybe the fact she was shot in general, or it could have been a head injury. We don't see the head injury, which he's correct. You don't see a head injury, although there was a scratch in her head when Ogie picks her up, which I'm sure you guys are probably mentioning or didn't mention in the comments already. There is that part. But we don't know for sure what happened. Saying it was shot in the stomach is completely asinine, and he knows better. He absolutely knows better. He probably went through the show several times when he cut the footage and got images. I know he did. If he said he didn't, because I do the same thing, and I've watched Code Geass probably, I don't know, thousands of times at this point from editing the videos. I've seen like the same footage over and over again. He saw the footage. That's why this is unacceptable. It's not his first take either. It's not a reactionary video. This is a thing he's spent time with. He's deceiving the audience. That's why it's so frustrating. People are going to watch this video and have watched it and be like, oh, okay, yeah, I guess that makes sense. But if you actually watch the show, that doesn't make any sense. But whatever, right? But the whole thing here, it's like based off a misunderstanding of the story, based on a misunderstanding of how things work in general, which you said that contrivances are based on real life or stories are, yet somehow you forgot the real life elements of life that probably could have been involved or related to this part in the story. I don't know, man. I don't know. But sure, if you want to promote this idea, go for it. But don't tell me in this video that he didn't make stuff up, because he has several times. When I'm done with this whole video analysis or watch through whatever, I'm going to put a video together every single time that he screwed up and made up stuff. It'll either be a compilation from the streams or I'll just make a brand new video, because I was willing to originally suggest or think, okay, just an opinion and move on. But no. I'm going to say a very strong statement, but I don't think it's remotely controversial. I don't think you can be a fan of Code Geass and say this video has good takes. I don't know how you can say that, considering we have been through now. We're we officially passed the halfway point. He made maybe 3 or 4 valid points. Everything else could be disproven by simple analysis and piecing things together that I felt were obviously shown to the audience. Nothing here to me has so far been legitimate valid criticism, again, aside from like 3 or 4 things. In a 25-minute video of using the most vitriol, perverted, bodily function descriptions to discuss why he hates the show in a most juvenile way I can think of possible. This is not how you should discuss anything that you want to have a productive conversation with other people. Anyways, we'll move on to the Mao part, because this is fun stuff.
Ludicrous as the series introduces this Mao fucker. Mao was given Geass by C2 previously, but she left him because he couldn't fulfill the Geass contract. Because Mao used his Geass too much, it has overtaken him entirely and is constantly in use. He can hear people's thoughts. Mao convinces Shirley that she's a killer and that she must kill Lelouch. Now, Mao has a gun on Lelouch and threatens to kill him if Shirley doesn't. This is a death no matter what situation, right? Wrong. Dead fucking wrong. Even though this idiot has a gun in his hand, he leaves the area to go back into a train car to grab a shotgun to kill Lelouch with, which allows C2 to lock him in and send him off. Like I said, the series is predictable.
The only thing predictable is you're, again, conveniently leaving out important information about the scene. You have got to be kidding me at this point. You think that Mao simply is like, you know what? I'm going to go back in the car and you guys just do your own thing. And you know what's funny? He fooled me. I'm not going to lie. He fooled me. I watched it. I was like, oh, okay. He's right. That was weird. But you know what? Just like Valletta, apparently, I used my brain and I watched the video, I watched the episode again. And you know what? You know what happened? Mao didn't go back to the car because he felt like it. You know, you got to be kidding me at this point. I actually watched the scene. I think after I watched the video just to confirm this, that is literally not what happened. We're gonna go through it right now. I'm gonna show you exactly what happened in that sequence, and what he just showed you was, as he would say, bullshit. I can't show the whole video because obviously, gotta be right. But let me show you the thing that matters, okay? It's really important stuff. Normally I'm just talking through, explaining stuff, but I actually have to show you scene by freaking scene of what's going on here. Okay, first of all, so C2 is present during the entire time during the sequence, okay? Keep that in mind. She is present here. She's going after Mao. So her being there at the end to stop Mao is not a contrivance. She's been at the scene the whole time. She knows that Lelouch can't go against him because Mao reads minds, okay? So her being there to help Lelouch is garbage. Like, as a complaint, is garbage. She clearly has been here the whole time. She literally took a car up there. All right, moving on. Let's get to the bullshit that he claims. Okay, so but here's Valletta, and see how she has like potential marks on her body. So maybe that's where the memory loss came from. Again, it's hard to say. It could be trauma. We don't know, given how she got here. But to assume it's a stomach thing is no idea. Notice how she's not even. You know what's interesting too about this? Now that I think about it, if you look at Valletta's injuries, let's just like go back here really quickly. You don't really see any bullet holes anywhere in her body. I don't know if you're aware of that. We don't even see any bullet holes like on her arms or her chest. So where the hell was she shot? Yeah, see, if you zoom in on this, I can't do it. But if you take a look at it, there's not actually any blood here or anywhere on her body. So it might be accurate to say that I don't even think Shirley shot her at all. Again, there's different ways to interpret what happened here. I don't think Shirley even shot her. It's possible she fell from the force of the gun? Because now I think about it, it's actually kind of confusing here because you don't actually you don't see any blood. Hold on, let me go back for a second here. Okay, here's the blood. Got it. Now when you see Valletta here, her head, by the way, and oh, you know what? Oh, look at that. See the blood here, and then her head's on the thing. That actually kind of looks like a head injury, doesn't it? Kind of look like a head injury because her head is literally on the thing and there's blood. She was shot somewhere, but it's not clear where. Now, let's keep going here. So here she is, and again, there is blood on this metal piece. I don't think that's from her head, but it's hard to say. It could be her arm. We don't see like blood on the arm itself. It's kind of confusing exactly where she was shot. Let's just keep this going. So he's trying to help her out, and she's like, 0, must stop, 0, and then she like freaks out or something like that, and then the scene ends. Weirdly enough, though, it's not really clear where she was shot, but it is interesting that Valletta's, you see blood, you'll see her head on the pipe itself. The point I'm trying to bring up about this is that there's still ambiguity what happened here. But to act as if you're definitive about it. Now, granted, if she was grazed by the bullet, then maybe she would have been fine if Ogi found her. And perhaps the injuries on her arm are through smacking stuff and not because she was shot there. Again, we don't know for sure what happened. It is telling, though, that when you first see Valletta, her head is literally against this thing and there's blood there. She doesn't wear a bandage on her head, but I mean, what could you conclude by this? She might have hit her head against it. All right, I got off topic. I just thought that was interesting. Let's get back to what the next effort he made here. Okay, this sequence, right? Okay, so let's go through what happened in the sequence. Lelouch convinces, they're going back and forth about what is right and what is wrong, philosophy, so she won't shoot him, that sort of thing. Now, this is the most important part. She fires at Lelouch, right? Okay, she shoots at him. Let me get to that part. Hold on. The pictures fly out, right? Okay. Now, this is the part he conveniently decided not to show you guys for some reason. I wonder why. So, during this part here, Shirley's mind a jumbled mess. She doesn't know what to do. Miles says the following. This girl at jumbled mess, I can't read her. Whatever, I'm going to go kill Lelouch. You see, she... Whatever. He points the gun out. Look what he does here. Hope I don't get strike for this, but... I'll go really slow through it. See? He points the gun at Lelouch. He is going to shoot him. And what happens? She shoots at him back. Then he's like, okay, fine, whatever. You win. I'll go back in. Do you see how the context matters in this sequence? Do you see how important it is to show the entire scene what happened? Because if you don't, you made it seem like Mao simply was like, you know what? I'm bored. I'm going to go back in the car. This is not interesting to me. He was forced to go back because Shirley shot at him. He couldn't read her mind. Do you not understand how important that is? He didn't know where she was going to shoot him or not. Mao is not shown to be a very smart person. Mao is shown to be a child. This is all a game to him. He's not winning this game, and it frustrates him. Plus, if he can't read the minds of the individuals, then his whole edge is gone. And so he was concerned that Shirley might shoot him, and she got pretty close. Okay? So the reason why he went to get the shotgun was so he could kill both of them with no issues, and also so Shirley would calm down and he could take her out too, because right now, if you look at her, let's go back to that. She is clearly confidently going to shoot him. Look at how she's pointing the gun. She fires. It was like over here. I'm so dumb. It was like over here or something. Right over here, I think. See how Mao ducks? He's clearly terrified for his life. This crazy girl has a gun and he's pointing it at him. And he's like, okay, you know what? I'm getting the hell out of here. And he goes into the train car. And yes, C2 locks it up and then he's screwed. Okay, so what? By the way, I don't know if you know this or not. I believe she's holding a gun. 1 second. Is she holding a gun? I can't tell. I think that's a gun. Unfortunately, going through the footage, this is kind of annoying. Is that a gun? I think it's a gun. 1 second. Hug Shirley. It's a great scene. But it's also so hard to watch. 1 second. Was C2 holding a gun? It's really important to bring up. I think she was. Give me a second here. We're doing a scene analysis of the situation. Okay, she's looking at C2. You're so beautiful, C2. It's so good to see you. That sort of thing. Come on. Can we see C2? Does she have a gun or not? It's kind of important. I believe she did in that sequence. I think that's a gun. Let me get the image itself. Maybe she's holding a banana. That's funny. 1 second. Let me grab the image itself. Yeah, she's holding a gun. That's why I thought. Why is that important to bring up? Because it means that if she didn't use the cart to stop Mao, she would have shot him herself. Do you understand again why this is such a terrible take? Because he's saying, well, C2 threw him into the, locked him in the car, therefore it's a contrivance. No, she was going to shoot him. That just happened to also occur to giving her a better way to take him out. She literally has a gun in her hand. So it's twofold. Number one, Mao didn't retreat because he's an idiot. He retreated because he didn't want to die. And the fact that that Shirley was shooting at him and would have continued to shoot at him if he didn't retreat. And two, if he didn't retreat, C2 would have shot him anyways. Remember, he can't detect her presence. She could have snuck up on him and killed her, killed him. You have got to be kidding me at this point. I know I sound really angry and frustrated and maybe a little sophomoric and whatever you want to word you want to use. But this is a video that got over 200,000 views that people think is factually accurate and totally roasts the show. At this point, I mean, what do I have to say anymore? I mean, we'll go through the rest of the video, but this is basic analysis. This is basic storytelling. You just simply watch and tell me what happens in it. How in God's name do you get this wrong unless you purposely got it wrong? And that's exactly what happened here. I remember when I first went through that scene, I was just thinking to myself, you've got to be kidding me. You really did that, didn't you? All right.
In its bad writing, and if anyone gets too close to exposing Lelouch or killing him, the series will flip the idiot switch on them and stop them.
No, you troglodyte. I'm just kidding. No. Also, you put... See, this is what I'm talking about. Look what the line he literally showed. He literally acknowledged how this has happened and he chose to not put it in there. You've got to be kidding me. The proof's in the pudding. You literally showed the thing you're contradicting. You've got to be kidding me. Again, Mao is not a smart character. He was never portrayed as a smart character. Please stop acting like he's some kind of super genius who figure out Lelouch's whatever. He didn't. If Mao was a smart character, he wouldn't have come to this stupid plan. I wouldn't say stupid. This over-the-top plan to get Shirley to kill Lelouch. If he really just wanted to stop them, he could come up with better ways to do it. Mao was a child. He's also insane. Obsessed with C2. They have never shown Mao to be an intelligent character. C2 literally told Mao this when they met in person. She told Lelouch this, I believe. Stop acting like he's some smart person. And when it comes to Valletta, there was no idiot switch. She simply made a bad call to get Shirley to come with her. And what happened, she never would anticipate Shirley would shoot her to defend Lelouch, considering that Lelouch killed her father. You would think the opposite would happen, if anything. The only idiot switch here, and I hate to use a term against you personally, is you, my friend. Not the story. Holy hell.
I'd now like to take a moment to talk again about...
Please don't. That was mean. I apologize.
Lelouch's plans. I feel like the examples I mentioned, while indicative of a reliance on context-specific flukes, could be expanded upon.
No, they cannot be. You just suck. I definitely would not, no, absolutely not. They were not flukes, if you will. It was this. The situation was presented to Lelouch. He took advantage of the situation. It's not a fluke. It was a situation that happened. You don't know what the word contrivance is. Everything's a contrivance to you. If things happen that you don't think would normally happen, even though they're based off real-life events that could happen, therefore it's a contrivance. You've used the word so much, you really don't know what it means.
Mao faces off against Lelouch again after he kidnaps C2. Because Mao's Geass is constantly being used and drives him insane whenever he has to hear the thoughts of everyone, he brings her to an empty amusement park. Before Mao chops up C2 with a chainsaw, Lelouch appears on a screen. Yes, that's right. Lelouch has become a hacker out of the blue. After he gets Mao riled up, Mao begins hearing voices circling him. It's the police. In the distance, he sees Lelouch picking up C2. It turns out that the conversation Lelouch had with Mao was pre-recorded. Lelouch predicted all his responses and even the timing. He then contacted and Geassed an entire police force into coming to the amusement park and shooting Mao. So to tally that all up, he becomes a video hacker despite having no prior experience that the audience is aware of. He finds a large number of cops and Geasses them, Then he returns here to the amusement park because he had to be 500 meters away to combat the range of Mao's Geass. Not only does Lelouch's plan rely on the convenient, albeit justifiable temperament of Mao, the impeccable timing of his own pre-recorded video, where he predicts not only the timing, but the things Mao will be talking about, but it also relies on teleportation, because we're never shown Lelouch moving around to any of these places where he has to do this, except the unknown location where he hacked into for the video for Mao. That's a considerably long distance to travel, considering that the conversation between Mao and C2 and Mao and Lelouch was less than 10 minutes. This is what happens during the bulk of Lelouch's plans that don't take place on the battlefield. They may seem decent at first, even really smart, but they crumble upon inspection as the strong reliance on the characters being dumb or Lelouch being nearly omniscient becomes apparent. What is easily
That was awful. And I mean that, yeah, okay. How should we start breaking this crap up? How do you want to like mix? Well, let's start with the first thing that I think is the most egregious part. The conversation between the two of them. That Lelouch apparently predicted what Mao said, right? Let's go through that. Because, you know, it's an important point. Let's talk about it. Actually, bring the sub up because I can't, I want to play the audio. That would probably get me in trouble. This is the most non-nuancing I've ever, like, you literally like watch the sequence and you completely misunderstood what happened. Even at least some people in the comment section of the video were like, dude, are you serious right now? Holy hell. Okay. All right, let's know what happened. Okay, let's go through what happened here. Because all right, let's watch this whole sequence of events. I'm going to pause so I don't get in trouble, obviously. But now, Noah's saying here, right? The video was playing. Yes? Okay, video's playing, right? It's playing. Not saying anything. He's not saying anything, right? Okay, just keep that in mind. He's not saying anything. He's just staring at him. Then he starts talking, okay? Now, let's talk about the context here of what happened. And I'll keep going. I should have chosen the keyboards. If you want C2, why don't you? And then what does he say next? Mao. Surely you don't think C2 is a real name, do you? Now let me ask you a question. Did those two things have anything to do with each other? He said, let's go back again. One more time. I know I'm being really hard on this, but this is very important. What does Mao say here? If you want C2, why don't you? And then Lelouch says, you know, that's not her real name or something. Or does C2 ever tell you her real name? Do those two statements have anything to do with each other? The answer is no. This is a generic thing that Lelouch decided to record. Him discussing C2's real name has nothing to do with what Mao was talking about at all. And notice how he interrupted him. Is that good timing? No, it is not. It is not good timing. He literally interrupted Mao when he was talking. He didn't plan to. If it was good timing, it would have started talking after Mao was finished. He interrupted him by bringing up Shirley C2's real name. So he brings the real name, and he goes like, and he says that what was it? She told me his real name, and I have her, and stuff like that. And then, is this true? And then he starts freaking out. He's just talking in a record. There are obvious. If you notice the recording, 1 second. It's really hard to get to these points, but I don't know a better way to demonstrate this. So it's not your real name to you, and then of course Miles like what, and then I'm trying to find the exact point here. It's hard to go through this even on Pod Player. Real name to you, and then Miles like what? No way. And then again, there's silence. He's not talking the whole time. Why is he doing that? Because again, he recorded silence in the middle of while he was doing this, just to break up the time a little bit in case Mao would say something. There's no prediction of anything Mao was going to say or thinking. His initial statement had nothing to do with what Mao was talking about. But sure, if you want to talk it up as to being omniscient, absolutely not. Now, Mao, of course, gives into it. Why does he? Because Lelouch took advantage of Mao's personality and his obsession with C2. The whole conversation was based on his obsession with C2. Nothing else. He figured Mao would talk about it. But even if Mao didn't talk about it, it doesn't matter. The whole point of what Lelouch is saying here is just distract him. Now, let's keep this going, right? So he asked C2 if this is true or not. Okay? Doesn't matter. He asked C2 a question. Now look what Lelouch has in response. It's very important. You know why? Because C2 belongs to me. That's what he said, right? Now, what did Mao say in response? Or before that? Like, why would you tell? I think he said hold on. For that, why'd you tell someone like him? And so Lelouch responded, you want to know why they told? And he said, the reason why is because she's mine or something like that. Now, you could argue it seems like he's responding to Mao, but in reality, it doesn't matter what Mao says. It's all a pre-recorded message. If he doesn't question it or not, it doesn't matter. The point is, he's just trying to piss him off because she belongs to him. Mao's like, the part he never got a chance to say, he's like, it's not true, it's not true. And then he got angry, and then he pissed him off, and the cops show up, and then it's over with. When you go through this whole sequence of events, it is, I think, really obvious that Lelouch simply predicted his motivations and response in terms of not like the word for word, but his attitude towards the fact he loves C2. There are obvious times in that thing where Lelouch is not even really aware of Mao. He's simply looking. Notice how when he looks in general from the video, he's looking straight ahead, not looking at anyone in particular. Again, you could tell it's a recording. The statement was generic. It had nothing to do with Mao, what he was saying. Interrupted him. I mean, if you want to say it's omniscient, then that's a you problem. Okay, but we got more to talk about. Believe it or not, there is more things to discuss here. Let's talk about Lelouch's teleportation complaint. And here's the thing, all right? We'll use DX's comparison about Lelouch's plans. At first, you think this thing that DX said makes perfect sense. But upon inspection, it crumbles beneath. Why? He said it's a lot of distant travel. I'm going to argue, no, it is not a lot of distant travel. Because Tokyo is not a big place. I did some research a couple of weeks ago, actually months ago, when I first was going to do a more, a video essay. It takes approximately 30 minutes to go from one end of Tokyo to the other. 30 minutes. Lelouch didn't go from one end of Tokyo to another. He went within a very small distance. Okay, but just perspective, we got 30 minutes to work with here. Just to go from one end to the other, if he wanted to do that, which he didn't do. Just keep that in mind, okay? 30 minutes. Now, Lelouch has traveled via the train many times in the show. We've seen this. So we can establish the fact he probably took the train to Tokyo Tower and probably then took the train then to a police station, or maybe he found something close by. I don't know. We're not entirely sure. However, the idea that he couldn't have done all this in the amount of time given is complete garbage, considering how fast airships tend to move. If he took an airship or if he took the train, I mean, Japan's bullet train is obviously known for being one of the fastest in the world. And again, it's not a lot of distance to cover. Okay? Okay. Now, let's continue on with this. Is it possible Lelouch could have gone there in time? Yes, because here's something else to consider. We don't know how C2 got to Mao, okay? He didn't even discuss the nuance here. C2, I assume, walked to Clovis Land. I don't think she had money. I don't think she paid for the train to get down there. I'm going to assume she doesn't do any transaction on her own, given the fact that Lelouch has to go with her on a train. And she stole a bike. So I don't know how she got to Mao. The reason why that's important is because if we don't know how she got to Mao, then you can't assume that the events that happened were... You can't assume that... How do I put this? Lelouch started his action as soon as C2 went to Clovis Land. You can't assume that because we don't know that for sure. Many times in stories, and this is I like this particular trope. He probably wouldn't. You'll show two events occurring around the same time, but in reality, it's not as exactly as it looks. Meaning that they're not exactly having the same time. I'm trying. How do I explain this? Because I'm not making any sense at the moment. I'll try to like walk this back here. So I'll use the example of the show to try to illustrate it because I'm like, it's almost 3 hours. That's probably why my brain's frying right now. But okay. So when C2 goes to Mao, right, it is also possible that Lelouch was around at the same time doing the same thing. So when they showed her talking to Mao, Lelouch was using the computer. You could also argue that was happening while C2 was traveling there, and they simply didn't show the scene. And they showed the scenes as they did to make you think it would be the other approach to build some tension in the sequence. A lot of times movies will do that, where they'll make you think a character is way behind someone else when they're actually not behind that person. They've been with them the whole time. That was what the show, I think, was trying to show here. I used show twice. Okay. And I think what was going on. Now, given everything I've mentioned, it is not unreasonable Lelouch could have gone to Tokyo Tower via train, record the footage, find the cops, Geass the cops, use the cop to travel around the area to upload the video, and then, of course, encounter Mao. The reason why it's not entirely a stretch of an assumption to make is because he traveled with the cops. So you can assume that on some level, they worked together. Now, it is true he wasn't wearing the uniform when he uploaded the video, so I guess that he found the cops after he did that. Again, probably traveled through train. I assume he was near Clovis Land, but I don't know for sure. We don't know where Clovis Land is, but I assume it's not. I assume it's a simple train ride away. And like I said before, he was probably close behind C2, closer than what they established. If C2 traveled by foot, he probably had plenty of time to encounter or help her out. The conversation between C2 and Mao, I guess, I would put it like this. I guess considering actual on minute screen time wasn't that long, but it was probably much longer than that because everything always takes longer than you expect. Add that with the current video recording, and you got plenty of time for Lelouch to go in there and bring the cops in. More than enough time. Again, Tokyo is not a big place. Geography is very important, as Tenkin 101 likes to say. Geography matters. You don't consider that in your analysis. Now, you could argue, like I said, maybe I'm stretching this a little bit and trying to use headcanon to explain certain things, but I'm just simply taking the ideas of how the area is laid out to explain that it wasn't teleportation. It's actually quite reasonable. The fact that you assume the opposite is whatever. I mean, it's a you thing, I guess. One other thing I should mention, and I'm not sure if this is true or not, but didn't they use the what was it? Didn't they use the video feed from in Stage 8 to present themselves as the Black Knights? They took the TV thing, right, from DTAR. Didn't they do some hacking with that to get it to show everywhere on screen? You know, this sequence, wasn't this a result of hacking stuff? Maybe I got that wrong. But there is some proof that Lelouch has done something of this sort with hacking things. It is also established later on that Lelouch has been hacking the elevator to escape Ashford Academy in Stage 16, which again, excuse me, Jesus, which again explains why I hate this discussion, because you're looking at each episode individually and not considering things as a whole. Now to the final point with this. Is Lelouch dumb or smart for these plans? Are these plans smart or dumb by comparison? Well, as I just went over the entire recording, that was pretty well thought out because he didn't actually predict Miles' responses. He simply predicted his attitude towards C2, took advantage of it, and distracted him long enough to defeat him. So there's that. Getting the cops to shoot Mao, I mean, well, sure, why not? Yeah, there's nothing really dumb about this plan at all. He wasn't omniscient. Mao was very easy to read. Lelouch literally said that. Anyone could have figured this out if they were with Mao, even C2. The problem with C2 is she was too naive to think she could save Mao. But she knows deep down he can't be trusted. She literally had a gun pointed at him in the previous episode. All right. I'm Holy crap. We are at 28-27. And again, Mao is not a smart character. Please stop saying that. Holy hell. Okay.
Lelouch's best plan was when he fought Mao for the last time, when he Geassed himself into not remembering his own plan, so Mao couldn't hear his thoughts. You'll note this is the only time Lelouch ever uses his powers against Mao in a way that his Geass actually overrides Mao's. This is because, plain and simple, a character like Mao should not exist. With his Geass, he is tremendously overpowered, and it takes 3 encounters to finally kill this guy, one of which was flat out horseshit. At the end of the day, the series managed to find a way.
The problem with Mao is not so much that he exists, it's how he's utilized in the story. I noted when discussing the episodes in my previous live streams that the problem with Mao isn't so much it's the usage in the anime. That's the problem. They didn't really utilize him in a way I thought was effective. Him existing as a mind reader, it's fine. It's not. It is overpowered for sure, absolutely. But so is Lucia's powers. Everyone's kind of OP at this point. And also it doesn't work on C2, so there are limits to it. So I think this is not a fair criticism. If the only way he was utilized, I could agree with that point of view. But say she shouldn't be here at all. No, I don't agree with that at all. It was the utilization of it, and some parts where they could have done more. Ironically enough, you don't point out in this video, which I thought was more obvious. So that's whatever. Let's keep going. We're almost there. We're almost there, guys.
To beat him by finally truly outsmarting him, but at what cost? The damage he does to the story wasn't worth it because Mao's concept as a character.
God, I know it's not nice to make fun of people when they talk, but the way this guy talks in his videos, it's so like it's hard to listen to.
Character and his very existence, where he serves as a cautionary tale for Lelouch, could have been portrayed many other ways. For example, Lelouch simply could have asked if C2 made a contract with anyone else and what had happened to that person. The damage Mao.
But it wouldn't have been as effective. And why would Lelouch randomly ask her this question? The reason why it was important to bring Mao into the story is because it forced the issue. C2 has been tight-lipped this entire time with. Oh my god. Lelouch has been trying to ask C2 questions this entire time. Has C2 answered them? No, she has not. So why would he try to ask her a question about something he wouldn't even think about because there's no reason to think about it? The whole point of Mao in this instance, or in context to your example, is he forces the issue. That's why it mattered for him to be there. C2 had to talk about it because Mao got involved in the story and also ruined Lelouch's life and Shirley's for that matter. That's why it's so important. And I will mention Kato in a positive sense, which I usually do. He did a whole discussion about why Mao actually is important, not just because he's a cautionary tale of Geass, but because it also talks about C2's almost repeating the same cycle of she worked with Mao and didn't go well, not just with Lelouch, and that's not going well. That was kind of the point of Mao's character, which C2 was even alluding to in the episode. That was literally right in your face. I think it was I just did a whole analysis of this. I'm so dumb. I think it was 13, where she was like, "Why am I doing this?" type of thing. Yeah, I think it was 13. So to act like Mao only exists for one reason or another, it kind of defeats like you didn't watch the show or you just don't care. Because Mao serves different purposes. Now, if he had said the following, Mao should exist, but he should have a mind-reading Geass, okay, that's a valid point. I'm not against that. They could give him a different Geass power and it's not as OP, but still challenges Lelouch on some fundamental level. That would have been okay. But to be like, Mao in general shouldn't be here because you could do the cautionary tale a different way. What's a better cautionary tale than to show it literally in action? You tell me, I'd like to know. Oh boy. Just, oh my god. I'm literally losing it as we're going through this. This is yeah, this is hard to watch. Okay.
Does as a character doesn't even end after he dies. There's a reason the series tells us that Mao's Geass was constantly in use.
And yet you will still complain about that when it comes into play with Yuffie. You're not satisfied with anything. If the story sets it up, it's still garbage. If it doesn't, it's contrived. If it uses a certain trope you don't like, it's garbage. Everything about this is so nitpicky, irrelevant nonsense. For God's sakes, man, be somewhat consistent here. The story gives you good stuff, it's still bad. You comment it, but it's only reminded by an insult. Holy.
Also, Mao was shot by the police and seemingly killed.
He looked alive to here. His eyes are open, but okay.
But he
Well, actually, I believe the eyes stay when someone's dead. That's true.
returned, citing the advances in medical technology. Don't forget either of these things.
I've already done it. If you guys are curious, I've done a video explaining why Yuffie died and Mao lived. There's actually a legitimate reason why it happened in the story. Again, if you just watch the episodes and you combine the situations back and forth, and you know a little about police protocol, it's actually not as contrived as you would think. Now, granted, I said in the video, and I'll say it now, it's not a definitive answer to the question, but it does kind of explain a couple aspects to it. So, whoops, I was trying to grab my battery pack to upload. Sorry about that. Oh, shoot, I ruined the whole thing. Damn it. Okay. This is still bad. Give me a second here. Okay. But if you don't want to like act further with it, then, or you don't want to mention that it exists, whatever. Okay, you got to be curious. I've already discussed like why people's understanding of that is wrong. It doesn't ruin the story at all because I think both situations were highly different. If you want like a TLDR version, it's simply this: Yuffie was shot in a vital organ. Britannian science can't fix vital organs. That's why also Lelouch, when he was declared dead and turned 20, makes sense because he must have been hit in a vital organ. So it's consistent with that part of the story. And Mao was shot. The police didn't shoot Mao in a way to kill him because police generally don't do that. Well, they're not supposed to, rather. And they were told by Geass to shoot Mao, not kill him. That was literally like an important point Mao brought up because police protocol, if Geass wouldn't act that way, knows the bullets don't hit Mao in any vital organs. When you see him patched up, his arms are patched up, not his chest, because he wasn't shot in the chest. But, you know, whatever. Don't look in the story. Just make stuff up. That's great.
Last 8 or 9 episodes of R1 is really when the shit hits the fan in terms of quality, and everything I've mentioned, from things being outright contrived to characters flat out saying that things are stupid, are on full display.
Considering the rest of this video has been complete crap, I highly doubt that. I highly doubt that. But sure, we're going to go to... You know what? We're going to stop here. It's getting really late. There will be another stream. Absolutely. There'll be a part 3 to finishing this up. Okay, we're going to hang out. I'll read some comments for a little bit, and then we'll call it a D. Now, we're going to do something really cool here, and hopefully you guys like this. I was watching the stream the other day just to see how it was, you know, if I could improve it or not. And one thing I didn't like, it was kind of boring. Let me play some music. Hope it's not too loud. You hear that? You hear me and the music. Like, am I competing with it? Let me know. Look at that. Let's go through those. Whew, okay. Oh my God, a lot of comments. I'm going to just go through ones that I think ask me questions, stuff like that. Nice. Okay. I don't know, honestly. It's a good point. I don't know why he mentioned the reasoning behind something and then said outright, well, it's not valid. It's really weird. Oh, the DX forget the pure leaders were famous because they want to abolish the honorary system so they can get the scapegoat. Yeah, exactly. That's a good point. Like I said earlier, when Cecile mentioned the whole like, what's the point of being an honor Britannian at all? DX missed the point that the honor Britannians were trying to get rid of it. It wasn't like the whole system was against it. It was just the honor Britannian. I mean, sorry, the pure bloods. I've been doing it for 3 hours. God dang it! It's the pure bloods. The idea that some people are not okay with the change, which is again a reflection of real life. That's why it's so asinine to not even consider the content behind anything. Dude, his metaphors are so childish. Why people think this is funny is depressing. It is a hater. It's not critical analysis. It's just hatred on garbage. They didn't know exactly. They didn't know about Zero. They don't know he exists. Thanks for applying this. Pretty much, yeah. And totally fine. They did exactly. There was a two-way discussion on it. But they both decided not to get involved. But yes, some blend and some did not. That's the important part. Distinction, if you will. I don't know. Yeah, I'm definitely losing it. True. I'm watching that show, by the way. I'll be starting watching it soon. I kind of went through it a long time ago, and I'm going to rewatch it again. I'm really excited. It's been a while. He wouldn't, of course not. People can't make stupid decisions at all. At any time, it's automatically bad. Context is irrelevant. It was a bluff, exactly. The bluff only worked because of Lucia's charismatic things, or skills, intelligence. But sure, don't even look at that. Yeah, kinda. It's a send a message. But again, if you don't look at the context, it's all dumb, right? That's why. It is. That's very true. In fact, Detour brings up all the time in the story. It is a hate agenda, absolutely. He said, "Why would he? He doesn't know he exists." People at Jared, what's 9 plus 10? I don't get the joke, but still funny. Interesting. I never thought of that. I don't. I mean, it is contrived in a sense because Naomi happens to get there, and like, it is contrived in one respect because Light happens to be there when Naomi is there, which is true. Very true. I don't think it's a bad thing, but yes, it is true that she happened to be there or he happened to find her. But it's still not. It's still a great scene. It doesn't really affect the story. I mean, it does affect the story a lot because by him stopping Naomi, it's a pretty big deal. I don't think it's a problem though. But yes, you could definitely say there's contrivance even in good stories. I'm not a big fan of Death Note, but if you are, I would definitely agree with that statement in terms of like a good show having problems. I forgot to mention that. Thanks for bringing that up. When Lelouch is he meant how Jeremiah doesn't know anything about the gas, used it against him. So that just happened to work well in his favor. True, very true. I haven't complained about it recently, but I'm sure I mentioned it before. It's true, it did. That's basically it. Also agree, absolutely not. It's a bad take. Yes, that was definitely a flaw that Suzaku had. It actually almost worked though with Euphemia. It went to shit when Yuffie died, and he had to go with Britannia again. And at some level, it was working, and some level it was not. In the end, he realized he has to go with Lelouch to atone for his sins and all that stuff. I would go half and half on this one. I like to use the F word. Normally, I would be okay with that on this stream, but like, given the content of DX, it totally works. 8 boner all around, yeah. This is very true. Most of the actions are based on him being a martyr and then making change from within. That's 100% accurate. Again, DX knows this. He watched the entire anime, but again, he missed that. Whatever. A lot of people do. Not a problem. It's totally fine. That's my point I mentioned in some of the comments when I first discussed going over DX's video. And also, just in general, in my first stream, I'm like, I don't care if he did make good points, which, I mean, we're like 30 minutes into the video, and I found like 2 or 3 things to latch on to that I thought were kind of good takes. And even then. But the attitude is so disingenuous and destructive and vitriol, and the language used it's so juvenile that it's hard to take any of this seriously. And also, like, it kind of kills the validity of the points, because, like, are you even being serious right now? Discussing human bodily functions as a way to, like, piss on everything? Taking Shirley, who's an innocent, sweet girl, and say she just wants to lick Lucian's dick? Are you serious? If you said C2 maybe in Resurrection, or Colin at some point perhaps, you might have a point, but Shirley, dude? Oh my lord. That's like the insult to Shirley's character. Oh, I'm sorry. She doesn't have a character. My bad. Fair point, yeah. You can't have a moral viewpoint that contradicts other people's or certain common sense. You can't have morals, or anything. You can't have flaws like that. Forget it. It just ruins the whole story. Chuck it out the window like that. What's his name? I forgot his name for a second here. I'm just so tired. What is his name? Parks and Rec. Ron Swanson. That's it. You know this meme? 1 second. Ron Swanson chucking a computer into the trash. You know this. Is there a GIF of this? I won't find a GIF to show you guys. See? Just chuck it in the trash like Ronnie over here. So stupid. Okay. Moving on. Yeah, he purposely he didn't show that sequence. You're not giving people a fair analysis. If you see, he says he's not trying to convince people Code Geass is bad, but holy hell, if you only show one side of every argument, what other conclusion am I supposed to come up with exactly? That it's good, that it could be good? You are so definitive in your statements, and you're so one side with the arguments. How the hell could I interpret it any other way? Even when you compliment the show, it's always an asterisk by it. Like, it's good, but it fudges its own thing. Or it could be there, but it's actually really bad. You know, that type of thing. You can't have it both ways, my dude. If you're going to say I'm not trying to convince you it's bad, then you have to present both sides of the argument. You have to literally argue both sides. I said the same thing. And then say, yes, it's garbage, as opposed to saying, like, well, you know. And when he does try to argue the point, it's disingenuous. Or it's like obvious statements that are not like relevant to the point. Or even worse, you just get it wrong altogether. For example, when he brought up Mao, we discussed earlier, that's not even entirely what the perfect character was. That was one aspect, but you're missing another point behind it, which you would have known if you went to the series. You said you spent time thinking about this, and so forth, other statements. He said there was some point in the show where things actually like looked good, and then the show ruined itself. I'm like, if you really understood why the show was good, I don't think you would have said that. Why is OneNote being really difficult right now? want to mark where I left off for the next stream, which won't be tomorrow, by the way. It will be next week because I gotta take a break from this. I gotta work on my Bleach video and also turn 19 and God knows what else. Oh, and the Lost Story has a new banner coming out tomorrow. I gotta work on that too. But what the fuck is the OneNote? Damn it, OneNote! What are you doing? Second. I'll switch songs here. What the hell? OneNote? You Sorry, guys. I'm trying to I just want to mark where I left off. Damn it. Okay, OneNote started to function properly. It only started to fudge up before. Anyways, back to the comments. Okay. But I don't think it's fair to say because you don't like it, the whole show is bad, considering the whole point of the show is to present. I think in some respect, why Sakura's opinions may not be entirely correct, to some extent. I partially agree with that, but I don't think it's fair to just hate on an entire show as a result. Let me give you an example, right? Naruto. I like Naruto. Do I like Naruto as a character? Love the show? No. I'm not a Naruto fan. But I like the side characters. I like the different, I like the world building the show does. I like the bigger conflicts. Do I like Naruto as a character? I'm not a huge fan of him. I like the whole world. If you don't like a main character of a story, doesn't mean you can't enjoy the series. It doesn't mean the show is not redeemable. It's a very simplistic, juvenile, childish way to look at something. Unless it's like a really good reason. But even then, what would the reason be exactly? If he's every single scene is really annoying. I'll put it like this. If you don't want to watch the show further, fine. To say it's outright garbage, that's not acceptable. Yes, it does. That's a good point. That's what I was saying there. Innovative? I don't know. To some extent, Suzaku tried to be. In some cases he was, in some cases he wasn't. That's the conflict in the story. And there are two legitimate sides to it. But sure, don't acknowledge that. So he kills people to stop from dying? No. Actually, he kills the people that were killing other people to stop from dying. Oh, I see what you're saying. Different people. Gotcha. Only the last resort. Otherwise, no, he does not. It's a stop. I would rephrase the statement as he stops people from fighting to stop people from dying. Killing is a last resort, and something he doesn't really want to do. He will do it if he has to, but it's a last resort. I would rephrase this to he stops people from fighting to stop them from dying. I know people misinterpret that, but there's no nuance in the discussion. Why would you even expect that? Sad, but probably true. Oh, nice quote. I like that. If there was a common leader in Britannian side of the conflict saw goes to Shinjuku, there would have been a proper intervention, prosecution of Britannia. Maybe. It's hard to say. Don't they approve of some of that action? I mean, after the stats, what happened then? I guess nothing. Well, Yuffie was dead, so they didn't prosecute. Would they have? I don't know. Schneider walked away clean from that. He supported the plan. I hope this is sarcasm. He's not enlightened anymore. Well, he did thumbs up a recent comment on the video, so he still supports the idea. Most videos are more positive from what I can tell. But yeah, this is a very toxic video. That's my point too. There are issues with it, but this is not the problems. We're really spending time on irrelevant things, in my opinion. I know. Ursula Shabo, I forgot about that. She was referenced by Clovis, but whatever. And so was Schneisel. Yeah, they were fine. I mean, like, wow, terrible take, my dude. That was the point. She comes in there, takes over an area, then defeats Lelouch. That's a great introduction to the story. You clearly knows when means business. Okay. This is a really good point. I actually 100% agree with this. This is one great take because exactly. Caesar is dumb for wanting to make peace with the apes and humans, and Koba wanted to kill mankind because they tortured him as a monkey. So therefore, they're awful people. Exactly. Brilliant stuff, my dude. Thank you. No, it's all dumb. Okay, it's just stupid stuff. Interesting. I did not know that. It does, but see, it's not even a love triangle. That's the funny part. It's not even a love triangle because Colin's not interested in Lelouch. What it really is, Shirley is just trying to confirm where they stand as a couple, if they stand anywhere. It's only a love triangle if Colin was interested too, but she wasn't. That she made it very clear in the story. The whole haram aspect to Code Geass is something that fans, it's fan headcanon. It's not actually stated or supported in the narrative. So I would go further and say there is no love triangle. All Shirley was doing was saying, listen, I want to make a move. Are you already in a relationship? Which is a nice thing to do. Shirley also a little protective over Lelouch, which is kind of weird. Going from Lelouch shooting Clovis to Miller Crown Shirley is jargon off-putting. Is it? I don't know. I didn't think I was wrong with that one. I mean, I can kind of see that point, but I don't see a problem with it because Lelouch wakes up and she's smacking him in the head. Also, the birds fly away, which I kind of liked, and again, it kind of shows that Lelouch is like, it's actually a really interesting tone shift because he just killed Clovis. Now he's wigging for that entire invasion. He's exhausted, and you know why he's exhausted. I kind of like that transition, but fine, fair enough. But here's the thing, though. The way you're presenting it is more of a reasonable, like, okay, some are okay and some are not. He's like, this goes to that, and they're not related, so therefore, my voice is dying. Okay. So, while I see what you're saying, I don't think that's a bad thing. But to act like, let's say you don't like that. How's that an indictment? The whole show is garbage. I don't know. There's Ashford, Suzaku, Ashford, and Warlight. There's more of it in the war than the actual Ashford. So, well, by season 2, they eventually abandoned Ashford by episode 8 when Lelouch goes to the Chinese Federation. At that point, Ashford's not relevant anymore in the story, especially since not only is with Suzaku. So they had to keep the facade going a little bit early on. Plus, there was the great reset in Code Geass, the great reboot, or the that's not what it's called. The sequel reboot thing. I forgot what it's called, but I have a serious question that I guess both Vince, if you're still on the stream, and also Code Geass anime fan, and whoever agrees with this perspective, because I'm legitimately curious. What is the problem with cutting from two different scenes that are not related and have two different tones? I'm curious to know what the problem is. I don't think the tone shift in the story ruins the seriousness of either scene or the silliness. Like the silliness of Millie's Cupid Day, which actually gets kind of serious later on when Shirley and Luch have their little moment together. But my point is, like, how does that ruin the other scene? sometimes it can be kind of funny. Like there's a scene in Bleach, which I did think was kind of odd to me, but people have argued against me thinking it was fine, so I kind of get it. So after this is a huge spoiler, by the way. Not really, but whatever. Chodro is killed by the Quincy's, which was so stupid. I'm going to be discussing it in my video, but he's killed by the Quincy's, and then there's a scene where they're burning his body, and then it transitions to Orihime lighting a stove or something. Now that's kind of silly because it kind of the reason why that scene bothered me more than most of the Code Geass stuff is because you have Chodro's dying. It's a very serious scene, and when they light the fire, you see Orihime lighting up the stove. I just thought that was kind of odd because I think that kind of ruins it a little bit because you're having two situations of lighting something, one for food and one for a character in respect of his death. That I thought was kind of weird. But going from like seeing a gunshot and then all of a sudden you're seeing birds fly up and then Lucius being scolded by Millie for being late or something. Those are kind of two different situations. I don't think they're lessening. I don't think those two scenes are lessening what happened. I could be wrong, but I didn't feel like that. But in this situation where you're showing or he may make fire on a stove, that was kind of weird. It's all subjective at the end of the day, and I know that's obvious. I shouldn't have said that. But the way that DX presents it, it's like absolutely a problem. I don't think it is. How would you establish out of place? That would be my question to that. But sure, fair enough. Yeah, basically. That's also a good point. Clark and his 2K focus on day of life instead of the Superman. It's the same situation. They're both balanced there too, or even Batman for that matter. You know, which people do compare Lelouch to Batman for those reasons. No, it's just contrived. Okay, don't you understand? It's a main hub. They just made high school age to be in high school. You're wrong, dude. You're totally wrong. To me, it seems like the charisma of Code Geass is I don't like Suzaku. I don't like Nina. I don't like the fan service. I don't like the school shit. I don't like how there's what else? I guess some of the bad writing, if you want to call it that. That's what I would note about the complaints about it. I guess to me, what my biggest complaint with Code Geass is just simply not showing enough stuff. I wanted more information, and we don't get enough information. That would be my problem. So that would be my thing. I know, right? I would be pleased about that. I think the point that Neo Zug was trying to make was just simply the idea of someone living two separate lives. Regardless of which is the real one, it doesn't matter. Just the point, like they're differentiating the two different aspects of their life and how they both are important to them. I mean, Lelouch as Lamprey can still do things he couldn't do at Zero, but that's a fair point nonetheless. Well, he tries not to, but you know. To an extent, I wouldn't go that far, but you could argue that. Well, in that case, Raul knew that, but he wanted to die saving Lush's life. That's why he did it. He was very much aware of the situation. Again, the context matters, right? I mentioned that earlier, yes. That was definitely something there. I agree. That's the problem, Mao. I guess that could have worked. That would be kind of cool. I am tired of this crap. Yeah, there's things you could talk about for sure, but come on, man. Why are we on the stupid stuff? To an extent, Shirley's character wasn't handled properly. Cornelia's was ruined in R2. And Knights of the Round don't get enough development. The Red Rock Connection had very little setup, and the payoff wasn't great. And Turn 19 is a complete disaster. Other than that, yeah, they're totally fine. Yeah, they kind of ruined that. I mean, you could have had Shirley join the Black Knights. You could have Cornelia join the Black Knights. You have Cornelia working with the OSI. I mean, there's some ways you could have fixed it, but they chose like the worst possibility. The cat isn't really relevant. It's what happened as a result of chasing the cat. I know it's such a strange take to me as well. I don't know where he's coming up with this stuff. And Bismarck and Bradley, but not too much. Yeah, her Destiny was awful, but it was like could have been better, could have been way better. I guess so. Yeah, we're still going back and forth. It's funny. Or not, and diminish his argument when he's correct on something. Exactly, that's the problem. He's so asinine with it. He's like ruining his own points. This is a very good point, as long as it is. I would argue that in Turn 19, I felt certain characters were acting out of character, which I'll get to someday, I hope. But yes, generally speaking, that's fine. We don't act optimally and Joey make tons of mistakes. As long as it's consistent with the character, as long as it's not too crazy, then it's totally fine. His perspective on certain characters acting in the way they did, if it makes sense why they would do that, then what's the problem with that? And again, we'll go to different scenes in the next stream, but his critiques on Colin were so bullshit, to put it lightly. Understatement. I think Bradley. Well, that's not even true because in the film they show more of Bismarck, so debatable. Bradley we need more time with. I didn't like him at all. The one who wins will realize the definition of right and wrong. They'll decide the future of how past written. The winner will define the meaning of justice. Ooh. Why'd you say this, guy? What was I saying to get you to write this? I'm not sure, but yeah, the history is written by the victors. I forgot why I encourage you to do this, but yes. Let's be real. That's from the other to R2. Yes, because of the Flaya warhead, right? But again, with Nia's character, there's some good aspects to it, but the table scene really ruined it, and then the racism for the Flaya warhead. But there is some good parts about it. I think people just chose to ignore it for whatever reason. The problems we don't start to R2, and then they kind of get solved too, but whatever. Yes, like I said before, they're showing you a private scene of Nina's life, like how Evangelion showed you private stuff where you should be watching this, but it's doing it to give you insights to what they're thinking and stuff, like how far they would go. It's supposed to disturb you, and they succeeded, I guess. I didn't think much of it, but hey, I'm just me. Gundam scene in original Gundam? Yeah, that's true, because in the original Gundam, isn't Amuro, he found it, he started piloting it, and that was a prodigy, almost kind of like Suzaku and Lancelot for sure. I have never watched Seed. I heard it was bad, though. Should I watch it? Maybe I will. I don't know what to do with anything. Probably drumsticks, if I had to choose. I like Shirley, but I wish they just did more with her. They fudged her up. Does he like Evangelion? I have no idea. Shinji, or is he going to flaws? Shinji has a lot of flaws, for sure. I don't know. That's something I mentioned in certain cases, especially here and also, on this stream in certain examples where if you apply a lot into other cases, you could take stuff he likes and say it's complete crap. That's why the problem with the law doesn't work here. If you're going to be hard on these are things that ruin a story, then I have to question what story do you think is pure perfection? Then you see he likes Ghost in the Shell, the film, and it has all these problems in there. There's a part where the gun, this gun they're using, I think the Major or Bottle had it, and he blows up a car or something. No, I think the guy had a gun or something, and he blew up a car or whatever. Then they fired concrete. It doesn't destroy the concrete, but it blew up a car. So which is it? Does the gun destroy a car or destroy concrete? It's not consistent. It's a contrivance or something like that. That's the problem with the analysis, is that if you really apply these ideas to other shows, you can really show anything to be crap. That's why you gotta be more specific on your complaints and really dial it into specific things that are bad, as opposed to generic statements that are based on misunderstandings of the story, which is the whole video in a nutshell. And the funny part is the criticism is not even good. Like, he didn't even present the possibility of why things happened the way they were or the context behind certain things. He assumed the worst case to prove his own point, and some cases didn't even show you the full picture. So you're left thinking, what the hell is going on here? I think I'll read what I missed. Oh, never gets recognition, unfortunately. Well, toward the end he did. The first time I saw the table, I didn't understand it at all. I never thought about it until someone mentioned table code at a random comment section. I never understood until I saw a reactor. Oh. Yeah, again, like I didn't think much of it either. I assumed she was doing something at the table, but again, it wasn't like, I don't know. Yeah, he's kind of annoying. The coconut, that's funny. It was the pier, but yes, there was something there. Yeah, Shirley did, yes. Again, they don't really explain what happened. It could have been trauma, it could have been head injury, whatever. Well, I'm here. How do you think I feel? When Ogi found her, she obviously couldn't hurt him. Yes. Oh, you're saying I think she cut their memory, but maybe was injured? Oh, okay. Yeah, something like that could have worked too. Did the guy said Men in Black out nowhere use my weapon and leave? That's funny. That actually would have been funny. Cheese code, yes. I had to do something funny, so I do. This other romance is kind of weird because it was based on like a false understanding. I don't want to discuss that. It's uncomfortable, to be honest. I'm not sure what you mean by that. Yeah, their relationship was really weird. I don't know if I'd call it contrived, but it was definitely not well developed. It was kind of contrived, I guess. Was it artificial? Kinda. I wish it more time with it. It was she was. I can't see her boob. I know. It does, and that's the point. He said it had the trunk area, but that's not what happened. Is okay. Fair enough. Oh, okay, fair enough. I think the memory loss, to me, I don't have an issue with it in general. To me, I'm not sure why she's still alive if she was in fact injured and bleeding. We don't know exactly what happened. But fair enough. He would agree with you because he thinks also the memory loss was a problem. Well, actually, he thinks it's how, not so much he had it. Well, you know what? Let me take that back. He said she was too close to the truth, and then they had to find a way to stop her. So he does agree that it wasn't good either. I don't mind the memory loss. I would have liked a better explanation behind it, and I think Ogi should have found her immediately, not the next day. She should have died of blood loss, if anything else. We did get to see another side of her. That's very true. But why would? Oh, if she was like captured or something, I guess. Don't argue Code Geass anything about this because this person believes that this was a great couple. I think he did actually. Yeah, that was the point. He was, and also when he was going to do it himself originally, see, Shirley shot at him, so he had to go back in to calm the situation down. Must have been. That's I was trying to think. Is where was the bullet shot, the bullet injury? The body had the arms wrapped, and then there was like a little like thing in the chest area. Here's what I'll say about your complaint. I think at least you're trying to actually find like nuance and solve it, as opposed to the actually like, well, it's all crap. I'm like, well, it doesn't have to be all crap. Yeah, it could have been the concrete, sure, when she fell. Possible. That's funny. But here's the thing, though. Like DHX, that's funny. He spent a lot of time thinking about this. That's the problem. This was like a reaction channel, which I'd take over this, honestly. Then you could defend that. But he didn't really think much into this. Yes, but you didn't make a rant like this based on them. Context is very important. She was holding a banana. Yeah, it's like, okay. Then don't make a critique on it. I agree with you, but here's my counter argument. Then just don't do a critique on the video. Don't make the show. Don't make the video then. If it's so painful and it hurts so much to do it, then don't do it. It's very straightforward. I hate when people are like, I didn't want to make this video. Bullshit, of course you did. That's why we're here. He also said he really thought it through to make this complaint. So he's doing this for money and views. So it's not a fair, how I put it like this. Actually, I think we're in the. I'm like looping the music. If you didn't know. Oh, never mind. I've not played this song yet. Okay. You know what? He's making a big video to discuss the topic that people are going to look at and accept as truth. So the influence guy has is pretty significant. So I don't agree at all. You definitely have to do your damn research. I know I'm insane. What did I tell you? Facts. That's what I'm trying to say. Me too. I wouldn't say Mao is smart though. That's the point I'm making. He's not shown as some kind of like intellectual genius compared to say Valletta or Lelouch to an extent. Although Lelouch is smarter than Valletta, obviously, but you know what I mean. I'm almost broken it too. Yeah. It did, yes. That was the point. But he also played video clips, depending on what sides and what say. The film kind of retconned it, but I'm pretty sure it happened in the original scene anyways. We're like 30 minutes in. Well, here's the thing. I think you could have... There are a couple things you could do. One, you have to figure a way where Mao didn't, like... So when he talks to Nunnally, for example, he can read her mind, right? So you think that could have utilized that better. He also could have, of course, told Zaku that Lelouch was zero. That would have been kind of interesting because Zaku knows that that Mao knows Zaku hates zero, so you could have mentioned that too. Those type of things. Those both could have worked. I think Mao should have had just more importance to the story with the big reveals and also just how he interacts with things. I feel like they only brought Mao into the story to get Shirley out, and also, yeah, that's it, to get Shirley out of the story. Which I didn't think was great. It was kind of a pseudo plot device. It didn't have to be, but it kind of worked that way. Yeah, maybe they were. Chekhov's gun. I heard you mention it earlier, or I saw that earlier. Chekhov's. Chekhov's gun is a dramatic principle that suggests the details within a story or play will contribute to the overall narrative. It's encourages writers to make false promises in the narrative by including details that will not ultimately pay off. Why? Maybe I'm too tired here. Other versions include a loaded rifle instead of pistol, but a lot of employment is the same. If something in your narrative grabs your attention, that detailed narrative work must be significant to the overall work, otherwise its significance is lost. What is the point of this? You know, I'm too tired to even think about this. If you can explain exactly what you mean with this, it is what long. Yeah, I'll keep going any time it takes. Oh, thank you, dude. I appreciate it. No, I watched the first one. It was bad. Please don't remind me of Let's React. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to eventually go over their videos and just do a Let's React, React, or React to Let's React and point out how dumb it is. They're not a good channel. They're like everyone else. Generic, boring, uninterested, not knowledgeable of the topic. The opposite of like myself, Kato, and whoever. I mean, maybe. I don't agree, but sure. That would be kind of funny, yeah. At least when Mauler just goes over the sequel trilogy, while he does have funny quips and jokes, he's actually making real arguments, unlike DX. Yeah. No, not the same time though. Not at the same time. Remember, Colin doesn't actually have any feelings toward Delusion until later on R2. And the reason why I say is because I think they pushed out Shirley to push Colin as the main love interest. Colin says she's not interested in Lelouch several times in the story. None of her actions even remotely suggest that. She's interested in Zero. She likes Zero, not Lelouch. I wouldn't even know who in love at that point. You can't call it a love triangle when Colin's not interested in the person Shirley is. Because to Colin's mind, Zero and Lelouch are not the same person. So it's not a love triangle. And with C2, that's not really a thing till R2. So, yeah, it's not. So was Full Metal Panic. Good anime. Oh, really? I haven't seen it yet. Oh, really? Oh, I didn't know that. Again, I'm not seeing Gundam 0079 or 0079. Oh, okay. Fair enough. Oh, gotcha. Um, right, there's no plans right now. I don't like it because I just feel like some parts are based on like weird aspects, like the whole memory stuff. It was just weird to me. So, oh, okay, I'm half asleep, dude. You could say anything at this point, I'll be a Millie Bedelia right now. I mean, like he used the memory, like through his influence, Shirley's memory were wiped out, and then she was kind of not able to do Beautiful Luke. So they meant by get her out of the story. I don't know if she had more screen time as a result. That's hard to say. I had to go through it. I can't like. The challenge is the print if you present a gun mounted on the wall and make the characters competent, then you should use it later on, or else with irrelevant mention. Oh, so what was the context behind what I was saying? Because I'm pretty sure I don't know. I'm really half asleep, but I'm pretty sure I discussed that. Um, Power of the King is what the Geass is. Just for the. You're welcome, dude. All right. And that's the last comment I got. I got through all the comments, so awesome. One day we'll have lots of people in this stream, which is great, but it also means that I won't be able to do this anymore. So there's always like a back and forth, but left off at 3:05. So the plan then going forward, to OneNote. The plan going forward is I think next week we'll hopefully finish this video. I don't know. And then Sunday I'm going to do a stream for Gacha and manga because there's a new banner for Lost Stories, and it's also I have to go to the manga anyways. And then I'm going to be probably doing a whole lot for next week besides that, and hopefully we'll finish this series by I guess Thursday. We'll see. I don't know. And then when I'm done, I'll combine all of it into one big video. We still have 18 minutes to go. We got a lot done today. We went to 27 minutes. That's really impressive. So we're actually not. We did pretty good here. I'm not gonna lie. There's nothing in Wonderland, but yeah. Anyways, thanks guys for watching. This was a long one. Damn, almost 4 hours. I wanted a 4-hour stream for Lost Stories, and also that goodbye to Generator Code. But yeah, that's it for the stream. Thank you guys for partaking as always. We'll be here doing this, I guess, on our next week. Anyways, guys, take care. Have a good night or a good day or whenever you chose to watch this.